Hi, folks. I'm Tom Jacobs, and this is Monday, May 14th, and this is the Bennington Select Board. We are convening for our business purposes at the Firehouse on River Street. I'd like to have my colleagues introduce themselves, if we could. Maybe Jean.
Good evening, I'm Jean Connor.
Good evening, Carson Thurber.
I'm Jim Carroll.
Hi, I'm Donald Campbell.
Hello, I'm Jeannie Jenkins.
Good evening, Chad Gordon.
Nancy Lively, Secretary.
Great. And Stu Hurd, our manager. Carson, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Let's go get
We can't pledge allegiance over there.
You're good.
Put a light out.
And don't hit the water sprinklers.
Don't tell me.
Fine, okay, hit the sprinklers.
And the lights.
Well done, gentlemen. Thank you.
Lead us on.
Ready?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks for all of the assistance.
You guessed. Didn't throw your back out, did you, Jim?
Shut up.
File it. All right. First order of business is the public hearing, the last hearing on the charter amendments, which will be offered for vote. We'll be talking about it a little bit later. This is the second final opportunity for comment. If someone in the audience would have any questions, I would be happy to entertain them. The board, I think, is satisfied with the content. Before I ask the audience, I just want to share something relative to the charter, because I've had a couple of folks come up and comment or raise questions relative to the local option tax portion of the charter. I think it's important that we all understand that when and if this charter amendment takes place, that does not mean that the town of Bennington is going to have a 1% sales use tax in the community. All this does is basically respond to the legislature's opportunity for the select board and the town to adopt a sales tax option if the town votes for it. So it's in the charter. Before this charter amendment, there was no provision for a sales tax. And whether or not we ever get to that point, that's to be determined by future select boards, I expect, and also a vote of the entire community. So this is not something that the town should be alarmed that's going to happen. Stu, would you like to augment that?
No, I think you've said it perfectly, Tom. Okay. The only way we'll ever have the opportunity for a local option tax of any kind is through a charter change. The legislature has chosen over the years to deny that opportunity to towns that are considered receiving towns, and those are towns that receive more in state aid than they pay in, and that is state aid for education.
Great.
And I have a question, Mr. Chairman. Stu, will we be able to amend where the tax is imposed?
Yeah.
Yes. That is to say, as I've spoken before about, having the local downtown businesses be exempt.
I don't believe so, unless state law changes to allow municipalities that opportunity. It does not exist under current law, and it's either everyone or no one.
And that's in the language of
yes.
Okay.
I can tell you this would give us the option to consider, but does not mean that we would actually ever decide to implement that tax unless the majority of folks in the community, after a recommendation comes from a select board for that purpose. Other folks, this is an opportunity, our final opportunity, if you'd like to come up and Jean-Marie. Got some competition back there.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sean Marie Oler, a resident of Bennington. I'm here as a citizen, not representing the Charter Committee, although I did spend 6 months every week reviewing the charter.
Great. Hey, Shamri, for the purpose of the audience, I think Michael needs...
I
Great.
hate these things.
That's good. Thanks.
So I just would like one clarification, Mr. Jacobs, if you would.
Please.
The minutes from last 2 weeks ago said that that you explained that some blah, 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 blah. Statute requires that we have 2 public hearings before the amendments are sent to the voters. This is the first hearing, which was 2 weeks ago, and the second hearing will be May 14th today. So I was under the impression that you would be sending it after the second hearing.
We would be setting the vote?
Sending it, quote, to the voters.
We are, and that's taking place on
June 5th.
June 5th.
But it's already been warned.
That's correct. The vote has been warned. In order to comply with the statute, when you warn the vote, you must also warn 2 public hearings. The first,
So in essence, really, there is no opportunity for the select board to change its mind on anything, because after the first hearing, you actually warned the vote. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding that correctly.
that is correct. The board could amend after the first hearing, but after the first hearing, there is no opportunity to amend because you're within the 30-day period for the vote.
Okay. So I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that there's been a lack of input. We had the same issue at the Charter Committee, that we didn't have many people coming and weighing in. We did have a few. I am extremely disappointed about the way the ballot is presented in terms of one box that says yes or no. In March, you had a meeting, and part of the packet had a warning that I believe Jim Barlow had reviewed, although the committee had not seen it. I just saw it on your packet on the select board website. And it at least listed the changes in the sections 1 through 8. So our recommendation as a committee, and I should say the committee recommended that you voted as a whole or in pieces. And I'm just disappointed, again, we didn't as a committee recommend that you voted in sections. We only tied section 1 to section 3 because we eliminated something and put it in the other. I also, as a citizen, do not support the local option tax. I spent 20-something years on the school board, and we are in fact a receiving town. And a receiving town means that we send up a certain amount of money and we get more back.
I have a feeling, Jean-Marie, that if a board decides to have a discussion on that, that's going to be probably 1, 2, or 3 on the hit list that folks will comment on.
And then I guess my other comment is the committee did not elaborate on the procedures and policies that we thought the select board should review annually. I will say that I feel remiss that we didn't address the bidding process. And I'm going to give you the school board statute because I think $100,000 to go out to bid is very high.
Okay, you're talking about the policy that we haven't...
Right, because
Yeah.
in the charter change, we recommend that
Right. We have a policy or review the policy.
or that you have procedures and
Yeah.
policies.
And we have one, but it's outdated, it's quite stale, and it's time to refresh that, and the dollar amounts that you have raised may be of concern to some members of the board as well. So I don't want to anticipate that, but I think that's going to be on a future agenda for
Should be.
next, I thought it was actually on this one, but we had other things that...
Yeah,
bumped it.
we had to pull it off because of the length of the agenda.
Well, I think that addresses the accountability that we felt as a committee that really needed to be addressed from both the select board and the people who the select board supervise. And policies and procedures, being up to date and people being aware of them are pretty important. So, and it, you know, it's all about transparency as well. If you don't know and then you don't tell the public, then, you know, people think you're doing something nefarious.
I think those are excellent points, and I can assure you that it's not going to be just a 5-minute dialogue on the policies and practices, and it's time, and I think that was something that the entire select board had talked about doing. In any event, the committee's reminder of that with its recommendation makes that even more important, because it's much easier to have a policy that we follow and we can reference, the management can reference, so that there's no question or quibbling about the policy or the practice. But
Okay.
those are all good. The date of the meeting is June, what time is that scheduled for?
The
June what?
meeting, June,
The
vote?
on the vote, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
at 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.,
Yeah.
June 5th.
Okay, that'll be advertised. Okay, I'm sorry. I've been known to do that.
Tom, Jean has her hand up.
Yep, thank you. Jean, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was appropriate to speak to the materials that are going to be available to the voters when they go in to vote. There's a lot more material, I believe, that's going to be available to help people understand the charter changes.
A copy of the charter will be in each booth.
And you can also get it on the town website right now with all of the background information. If
Each
you're-
of the amendments will be there?
The
Yes.
entire charter, the entire document, which is what we're voting on, will be in the booth. The amendments will be highlighted just as you have them in your copies.
Yep. And could you just share with us the rationale for the entire up or down versus particular sections?
Well,
We had that discussion.
initially, I had drafted a warning that took the two, what I consider to be most controversial issues, and placed them on the ballot as a separate item, and that is the local option tax and the change in the downtown improvement district tax, which now will extend that tax to non-owner occupied residences, which are now, right now, not taxed, they're tax exempt. When I sent that up to Jim Barlow for his review, he indicated, and through a thorough review of the law, you can do it one of two ways. Either each section is listed to be voted on, or it's the entire document with a summary of the document and the changes that you're having. Due to the length of the ballot, he recommended the summary. In fact, the warning that was posted and is available is written by Jim Barlow. He went through the document, highlighted all of the changes in each of the sections, and that is what people are asked to review and vote on, and it's a yes or no vote. It's the entire document or not at all.
So, Stu, is this the document that basically you had in the packet in March that has subchapter 1, 2, 3, 4, and taxation? Is this what's going to be available along with the actual charter? This is the summary that was sent back to you from Jim Barlow that was in the packet.
That is on the warning, yes. The warning, that is on the ballot.
So, but the absentee ballot I got says yes or no with a little box. That's it. That's the only thing that came in the mail.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, that summary is not on the ballot. I can tell you, I voted today, and it's just two boxes. Yes for the charter change, no for the charter change.
With no summary?
No summary.
Well, it's certainly on the warning.
So that's why I'm here.
That's interesting.
And it was your decision, Stu, to, rather than have each and every one of the charter changes on a ballot, be it an up or down vote?
No, it was your decision.
We
I don't recall that. I just don't recall that.
Recommendation, rather than every item, the four folks would be in the ballot booth for most of the day. It was an attempt to get the highlights, I think, are in the summary, along with the up or down. But I think we have an obligation to those that are going to vote to get that information circulated so that they have that before they go in the booth.
Is there an opportunity to correct the absentee ballot issue? It sounds like it was an incomplete
Not before.
mailing.
That creates a problem for us. I'm going to have to look at this legally. It should contain the summary, the warning contained the summary.
I would think, yeah, that the same, those that show up versus those that vote absentee should have the exact same mirrored image to vote with.
It may throw the vote into jeopardy.
I have one last question that you made me think of. So is there like a floor meeting on the night of the 4th?
No. Basically, these two hearings are that.
Okay, so in any of the, and I haven't been to all, and I've watched
Sure.
some on TV, have any of these been projected so that people can see the changes versus on a piece of paper? Like like how you do your other things? Have you projected the changes for people to see when they're in the audience? Or even you guys?
Have they,
Not at these particular hearings, no.
Okay.
have they been posted on the town's website?
They're on yes, they're on the town's website.
All right, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Shamri. Does anybody else have comments on the, good. Good evening.
Hi. Nancy White. I have several comments on the charter changes.
Great, go ahead, Nancy.
I'd like it noted that this meeting is not listed in the banner tonight. I think it should have been. I think citizens should have been aware so they could have been here so that they could have watched the meeting. And I want to make it clear because I looked a couple weeks ago to see how the vote was going to be written, and I just see the one line. Is that what people are getting for the absentee ballot?
Those that voted, will have to explain. I don't know what did they
Donald
get?
says yes.
I voted today, and it looked like a single sheet of paper with 2 boxes on it, and one said yes for the charter change, and one said no for the charter change.
That's what I saw. To me, it's a fast one being pulled on the taxpayers. I thought that you were going to list the 5 or 6 major items, 1 or 2 lines, so people could look at it ahead of time and go online to get more information.
Yeah.
There's no information for the voters, particularly the taxpayers, who are going to be affected if this charter is approved.
I think that's a question that has been asked, and I think the town manager has got to look into it because certain folks have voted absentee without that benefit, and I would be probably very concerned that I voted up or down without really having an understanding of what I was voting up or down.
The first thing, the local options tax. People need to understand that this is going to set the wheels in motion to add an additional 1% in addition to what we already pay for state taxes. 20% of our citizens live in poverty. Many of the homeowners, the working class and seniors in this town, struggle more and more each year to come up with the money to pay our local taxes. It seems to me that local officials are determined to squeeze every last dollar from the pockets, both of residents and visitors to this town. I understand that this is just a first step. I don't think the step even should be taken. There's no reason we should pay more because we're living in Bennington. One of the comments that I read in the charter meeting notes was someone commented that Bennington is a bargain. Albany, Manchester, and Massachusetts all have higher taxes. That's crazy, so we should have to pay an extra 1% because we live in Bennington? Another question I have is with the fire department. I support the fire department 110%, but I read a little bit about talking about paying drivers and possibly paying a chief in the near future. Have you gotten together with the fire department and told us what we would be looking for each year roughly in the budget?
The long and short of that is that if you read that closely, and maybe that's part of the educational process, it doesn't give any change to the department. If in the future it became impossible to staff the fire department would have to come to the select board to ask for assistance, possibly in paying additional employees of the department. Right now, I think the chief gets an honorarium.
The 3 chiefs get a stipend, yes.
Yep. That's not going to change, and the statute, or the charter is very clear on that. but we're talking about potential in the future. A charter is a living document. If you've reviewed the work of the Charter Committee and heard other comments from the board, this is a living document. It's trying to respond to potentials in the future, giving us the opportunity, if it's appropriate, whether it's for the fire department or a local sales tax option, we have the prerogative of dealing with it. It doesn't change the world at all. What changes the world is the voters, if they decide that they want an option tax or they want to pay the fire department, that's when this will be revisited in great detail, and I expect a long discussion at some time in the future.
So if the fire department needs money in the next year for drivers, you don't have it to give to them?
We don't. I mean, we have a budget, and we have a volunteer fire department, and that's what we're going to be budgeting for until the fire department comes and says, we cannot perform the duties of our responsibility with the volunteer staff that we have. I think at that particular point in time, we have to look at it, but we're not anywhere near there.
And one last question with the fire department that I'd never heard before. Stuart commented that the Vermont Department of Labor and Industry wants all departments to be paid. Is this something that they could make us do within the next decade?
I don't think they can make us do it. I can tell you that they have been making certifications for volunteers more and more difficult every year, requiring more and more time commitment from the volunteers, and I think that's the underlying reason for it. And I don't think there's any attempt by the Department of Labor and Industry or anyone else to try to force towns into a paid fire department. But certainly there is this onerous, continuing requirement for certifications for volunteers that takes time out of their workday to go get the certifications necessary in order to be a volunteer. And I think that's problematic.
One of the comments said that we're saving $2 to $2.5 million a year with a local fire department, and I think that's something that every select board needs to keep in the back of their heads. That's an awful lot of money that we're going to have to come up with if we were ever to lose the volunteers. So when we're spending money on all these other things and putting us on the hook down the road for other projects, we need to keep the fire department in mind. Lack of conflict of interest policy, I was concerned that that wasn't included in the charter. Why was that not in there?
Well, all policies are adopted by the board for operations. They're all also living documents. Policy and such as a conflict of interest policy, I think, can be changed from time to time by a board. If you have a policy such as that written into a charter, then it takes a very onerous process, which is 2 public meetings, a vote by the public to change that policy. And you may only want to tweak it, but you can't do so at the board level. It takes a vote of the public. So you generally do not include things such as conflict of interest policies and policies and procedures in a document that is simply similar to a constitution for the community.
Yeah. I think the essence of it is it's easier to change policies than it is to change the charter, because the charter becomes basically an act of the legislature.
That is correct.
I have a question on the state-to-state program. I'd like to know when town officials were first aware of this. Using state dollars to try to attract people from out of state to move here, offering them financial incentives. Bennington is the first town that is going to be rolling out that program, along with Brattleboro and Manchester and Rutland. I think the homeowners of this town should have known about this before we voted on March 3rd.
It's not a town effort. This is an effort that is sponsored by the Bennington Area Chamber of Commerce and is part of the Vermont State Tourism Bureau in order to try to attract people to the community.
Shires Housing is one of the sponsors. When I look at the downtown district and the TIF program, I see property after property showing housing after housing after housing. I'd like to know how many of these housing units are going to be affordable housing, because that will have a huge role in this project.
I can't speculate as to what changes might occur. It's a chamber-sponsored effort. It's not a town-sponsored effort. There's no tax dollars going into the process.
But it all goes around in a circle. The chamber and businesses are working to create housing so that people can come here from outside of the state. It's unfair that people can move to Bennington, be put in high-end housing at a bargain price, and be handed a free pass by the Select Board. If people are going to be drawn to live in Bennington by the Chamber of Commerce and be put in affordable housing, they aren't going to be paying one penny towards the town taxes, the water and sewer system, the school system, or any bonds that the town has out. How is that fair to those of us who've been paying local taxes for 20-plus years?
Are we supposed to comment back here? or just
It's fine. I
absorb?
think it's fine. I mean, this is a public hearing for the
Well, I'm
the
just
charter.
saying, to me, it's a
know
conflict
we're-
that we weren't made aware of this.
Yeah.
Weren't town officials aware of this program prior to March 3rd?
I mean, my comment is, are you kind of combining the idea that the people who are being enticed to come onto the state, this program you're mentioning here, that they're automatically going to end up in Shire's housing?
I'm not saying automatically, but I'm saying if I'm concerned, and I'll just go on to the next one, because that goes with
Just
the...
try to stay with the charter, because what you talked about was really beyond that part
Well,
of the
that's a
discussion.
conflict, but because I believe people in the town office and in the downtown projects were aware of this. And I think we should have known about it as local taxpayers.
And as Stu said, this was a chamber initiative. It was not a town initiative, period.
Yeah, but if you want to take it
That's
up
just
with the
factually,
chamber,
you're in error about that.
Well, I pay state taxes too.
Well, I'm happy to talk to you about what I know about it later. It was a state initiative, and Bennington was one of the first towns to try this out. And it was an effort to entice people who had either lived here, moved away, and were vacationing here, and so had an interest, had some kind of connection to Vermont, to move back to Vermont. And it rolled out really, really quickly. My understanding is an extremely small number of people that were engaged in this for Bennington, but it's really a state initiative to try and capture people who come here. But I can talk to you about it. I can talk to you about it later. I'm happy to do that.
Okay. And the last thing is, I can't even find it on here, where the select board will be eliminating the townwide vote that is required to change the downtown district. Does that mean if you want to expand the downtown district, we won't be able to vote yes or no anymore?
The map can be altered by the select board should the charter amendment pass.
And why would you want to eliminate the citizens and having a say on yes or no that this is extended?
Well, it still has to be done at a regularly scheduled meeting of the select board, so there's still citizen input that's available to the citizenry should they desire to comment.
There's one public hearing, and then the select board will vote whether to
Could be two.
extend it. Again, I think it's taking away, more of the rights of the citizens and taxpayers. So,
But for any change like that, isn't it 2 hearings?
yeah, I'm sure there would be
it's
at
been
least
changed to
two.
one hearing.
I mean, the charter provides right now that the map must be changed by a vote of the
Right.
people, not of the select board. The recommendation was that map, should the board decide that needs to be expanded, that authority will rest with the select board after at least one public hearing. That's what the change provides.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for your comments. They were helpful. Joey, please.
Hello, Joey Culkin, Bennington. I just want to make sure I understand. It seems the charter change vote has been tainted. So do we have to start over? Should we start over? Can I make a recommendation, request to reset the vote? If Don has voted and others have voted absentee for things they don't know what they voted for, it seems we should rewarn it and change how the ballot's going to look, absentee and in person.
Joey, I'm right with you because we don't want to be voting on anything that could be questions. So I think we should check with our legal counsel, but anticipating that advice, I think this board would say, we would rather postpone the vote and do whatever we need to do to let the world know in proper fashion relative to the content of the charter changes and the summary that everyone should have. I think I'm speaking for the board. I mean, it's...
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make
No.
sure I was understanding that
No.
votes have taken place
Yeah.
with voters not knowing what they voted for,
Yeah.
so.
Thanks, Joe.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Other folks on the charter change? We'll close the public hearing, anticipating there may be some further reaction, response from management and the board relative to this process. The next item on the agenda is our standard consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion for the minutes of April 23rd and the warrants, and the proclamation we'll have for after that consent.
There's a public hearing.
There is, okay. Oh, the public. Can we do that after this? Unless is there anyone here to speak on the matter of the wastewater treatment facility, no public impact, other than Stuart Hurt?
We have Wayne Elliott from Aldrich and Elliott, and we have several state folks who have come down for this.
Okay, by all means, let's hear them now.
So you're going to open that public hearing?
Yeah. This is a public hearing relative to the, quote, finding of no significant impact wastewater treatment facility that has been warned, I take it, right?
Yes.
Okay. We are here to hear comments relative to that finding, and we will go from there. And if the presenters will introduce themselves, we will go accordingly. Wayne, I think.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Wayne Elliott from Aldrich and Elliott.
Right.
Lynette Clito from the state of Vermont.
Jeff Fair, State of Vermont, Department of Environmental Conservation's Facilities Engineering Division. Both Lynette and I are with the Design and Engineering section, and Lynette is our Chief Design Engineer.
Great. That's a handful. Thank you. Go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, so I'm going to, if I walk away from the mic here for a minute, so what I'm going to do, so we're here for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade tonight for the environmental review process, and Lynette and Jeff are going to kind of handle that piece of it. I'm just going to give you a very quick overview of the project scope here. As you remember, there's two parts to the project. The first one is the RBC replacements, which the town is doing the work. The wastewater treatment facility upgrade itself included three major components. It included the new screenings building, it included the upgrades of the air digestion system, and then the control building additions. So it includes all of those components. The RBC replacements aren't on this map. They're to this side here. So if you're coming down the treatment plant site, this is Harrington Road over here. This is the drive into the site. This is the existing control building. The RBCs are over here. All of that work, and the majority of it is occurring within the existing tankage.
Right. Actually, we got pictures from RJ Jolly of the new RBC. They're a pretty impressive unit compared to what's there now.
And that's going well so
Yeah.
far.
Good.
Got one road, one train done, and the second one due to start shortly.
Great.
So the wastewater upgrade project itself, we're between 90 and 100% here. That's slated to go out to bid here in early June. So the three major components, over to the right here, we've got a new screenings building that's about 440 square feet. It's got two levels. The issue of concern here, it's been noted as part of the environmental review process, is the proximity to the 100-year flood elevation. So if you look at the existing topography, the river's down here, and up to about elevation 538, encroaches up into the edges of the site here, almost where the screenings building is going. So that's one of the concerns that's been raised as part of this environmental review process. To mitigate this, the screenings building, the finished floor elevation is a foot above the 100-year flood elevation. There is a lower level where we have the screen and the pipes that come into that. That's completely protected, so that could flood unless we did something well above the 100-year flood elevation. The digestion system, the majority of that work here for the primaries and the secondaries is happening within the existing tankage in the building. There is a small 160 square foot addition that we're doing on the north side for electrical. Again, that is above the 100-year flood elevation. And then up here to the left of the site, we're doing a new addition to the right of the existing control building. This is going to house some of the new electrical, the PLC SCADA system, and that's just a slab on grade. Okay.
So as part of our funding process, we have to do these hearings to address that we found no significant impacts with the project. We typically find that with the design above the 100-year floodplain, that is adequate. We will also accept the town's permit as part of the mitigation, so any decisions that the town makes would be incorporated in that decision as well. The public comment period is open through the 22nd, excuse me. And comments can be made tonight, or they can be sent by email to myself, Wayne, or Stu. And then documents are also available at the State of Vermont, Wayne's office, the town office, or online through the department's website. Are there any public comments?
I guess the reaction would be the project will not increase the current permitted flow capacity of the treatment plant. The project does not include sewer extensions, right?
Correct.
So just the existing project that Wayne has just outlined. Okay.
Yeah, you can email me at Lynette, LYNNETTE.Claudon, CLAUDON @vermont.gov.
Okay. The package contained the findings of no significant impact, and I think the entire board's had the opportunity to receive and review those if you found any questions that you think appropriate. But I think the essence of it is that this project is capable of and is in compliance with the state and federal regulations. Okay.
Correct.
Go ahead. Sorry.
The only thing I'll add to that is the review that we're required to do by federal statute is rather exhaustive. Cultural, economic, as well as environmental issues are looked at, first compiled by the engineer, and then we do a review. And in this project, it was just one item that triggered the FONSI versus the less onerous environmental review we need to go through. So that hopefully helps put this meeting in context.
That's helpful. Thank you. Good.
And just a brief update on the local permitting. We submitted the application materials to the town. There were some comments, so we made some revisions in the drawings, and we're scheduled to go in front of the DRB hearing the middle of June. Is it the 11th, Dan, or no? It's not. I'm not sure which it is. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Chief.
This is the first time I've been through this sort of process, so how does this project compare to other projects across the state? This seems like this was really good news. Is it, or what's your history? What's the history?
It's very typical. Most of the wastewater treatment plants in Vermont are located on rivers. They're very proximate to the 100-year floodplain, and it's been in the regulations for a long time that the plants are protected to the 100-year flood elevation plus a foot, based on the 1977 executive order to that effect.
I'm having a little trouble hearing you. Okay.
Sorry about that.
It's basically pretty normal.
Okay.
And since 1977, there's been flood regulations at the federal level that require this type of review when there's federal funding involved.
Okay.
Is there any look at fluvial geomorphology stuff when you get into that, or is it all just floodplain?
We will as a state, that's a concern, so we do coordinate with our rivers engineers if we have any concerns about that when we do the environmental review process. This was not the case.
Okay, thank you.
I think to answer Dr. Jeans, this is really a good report.
Yeah.
And that basically can save a lot of time, money, and effort. But I think a lot of time, money, and effort went into getting to this point. And we appreciate the efforts of the state and working with Wayne and his team. And so I think we're ready to carry on, and the public comment period stays open till the 22nd.
Yeah, it's quite a relief you're not down here delivering bad news to
Right.
us.
So if there's no public comments tonight, could you close the hearing?
I'd be happy to do that. I will close the hearing. Thanks for that direction. I appreciate it. Thanks, Lumber.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. I think we still have to do our consent agenda. A motion to accept the minutes.
So moved, minutes and warrants.
And
I've got some questions about the warrants.
Please
if
do.
I may. I'll wait till Stu comes back.
Do we vote? Do we vote?
We have not voted yet.
No.
Jim has
We got a second, I take it?
Stu, I've got some questions about
We have a
the
second?
warrants.
Yes,
Good.
I'll second.
Thank you.
First one is on page 4, item number 317806, D&M Petroleum Incorporated, Ballard cover. I don't even know what a Ballard is. I wouldn't know it from a can of paint.
What was that, D&M Petroleum?
Yes.
$1,716.
Well, a Ballard cover, it's this is part of the facility, the DPW facility bond payment related to D&M Petroleum. I imagine it's a part that relates to the gas facility that we have installed there. I don't specifically know exactly what the part is.
The bottom, the second to the last on the bottom of the page from Evans, item number 317815, Willow Park flags, $1,116.
Yes. You may recall now, many years ago, Price Chopper donated a 90-foot flagpole to the town. In order to fly a flag on that flagpole that conforms to the flag standards, we have to purchase a flag or flags that are substantial in size. This may be a purchase of 2 flags. One is a backup. The winds there are pretty horrific, and those flags do suffer damage relatively quickly. But it's a large, you'll see that flag flying from anywhere on 279.
What happens to the old one?
Pardon me?
What happens to the old flag?
They are turned over to the American Legion and burned as according to code.
On the next page, 5, Fisher Scientific Company. We have a need for an autoclave?
Yes, we do. Yes, was that the question? We do? Yes, we do. It's a part of the wastewater treatment facility, and it is considered to be a necessary piece of equipment as part of our, I'm guessing, our lab efforts.
And it looks like this, I mean, it's a big item, $5,886.
That may not be the only item on the purchase order. The 230 that is attached to it indicates small tools and equipment, so none of those would exceed $5,000. So it may be an autoclave plus other purchases for the lab that it would be necessary to make.
Okay, let's see, the next one is on page 8 of 12s, and it's item number 317851, and it's New Hampshire Polygraph.
Yes.
Is that standard operating, was this for a police officer?
Yes. All
And that's-
police officers are polygraphed.
Okay.
And those are the potential new police officers. It's one of the last steps that is undertaken. We contract with this firm to do polygraphs. Historically, the state of Vermont State Police used to do polygraphs at no cost to municipalities. Several years ago, they decided that that was not in their best interest and no longer do polygraphs for municipalities.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
I commend Jim for reviewing the warrant.
Did you say price?
And everyone,
I got a lot of time.
and anyone that does, it's important to review. And if you have questions, feel free to give Stu a call or an email, because I've been known to do that when I have a question. So
Ahead of the meeting.
Ahead of the meeting, because it gives, sometimes they're more elaborate responses that are dictated, but it's important that we do understand what the warrant process is. The warrant process is to approve, and I will sign upon that approval. So any other discussion? Hearing no further discussion?
On the,
Do the proclamation.
On the warrants and
On the
minutes.
warrants?
oh,
Yeah,
yes, on the
yeah.
minutes, yes.
Yep.
Just quickly, Eric Peterson's name is, it's S-O-N rather than E-N. Okay. And then I had a question on, Jim had asked a question, it's on page 4, about Google Analytics. And I believe that, and what's reported is that the region was not available from Google Analytics, but I think the issue was that what the website that was being discussed is for members, and so it's not a website where hits matter, because it's not the website where the public is coming to look at information. So I'm just thinking that.
My question to John was, if he had analytics, to the number of hits that he gets with respect to Bennington through the BBC or the Downtown Business Alliance.
Yeah, but I'm thinking that the particular thing that's in here, I think is not an accurate statement. It's not that Google Analytics is not available in the region, it's that it did not make sense for that particular website. So I don't know what to do about that sentence. I don't know.
I think the minutes of this evening should reflect your understanding what the minutes were, rather than.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments? All in favor of the consent agenda as presented and discussed, signify aye. That's 7 in favor and no abstentions or objections. Okay, the citizens' comment period, Joel, I think you're up. Joel Lensner.
Don't forget the proclamation.
Yeah, I'll get it out to Joe. He's been waiting quite a while.
Joel Lensner, Bennington.
Hi, Joel.
Couple things. First one is real quick. I've heard that the state is going to be repaving or doing some sort of work on Route 7 and Route 9 downtown this summer. Is there any way that we can get some details about dates or where locations so store owners can prepare for that?
I can give you the locations. The paving on Route 9 will begin just west of Old Bennington, come all the way through the downtown, out to the new Route 279 interchange. It will begin in the south on Route 7, approximately at the Park Lawn Cemetery, come all the way through north to basically the Chamber Building or the State Office Complex.
Good.
But they're not going to be working on Mayfest and all those days?
The paving will not start until July 31st. We have a number of manholes that need to be rebuilt and replaced. That is on us. So we will be doing that work, and the state has agreed not to begin any paving work until July 31.
How long a project is that, Stu?
It should be finished within this construction season.
Okay.
How does that talk to Joel's point?
Yeah.
Like, what's the schedule? Do they start at Camelot Village and come towards it? Do you have any
We don't have that schedule yet. That has not been provided to us at this time.
We're going to be done at night or day, do you know?
It's going to be mostly during the day. We've provided for, or at least the initial contract provides for no nighttime work because we think we have sufficient opportunities for detours so that we can either keep one lane of traffic open or move vehicles around the paving. It's basically a mill and pave. So they'll come through, they'll mill the old blacktop, level it, and then come back through and pave it.
Jeannie's got a question.
Okay. Chad after.
The state hasn't said anything about like the total length of the project. Like, is this going to be done before? My first thought is Garlic Fest, and then we get into October.
The goal is to have the project completed during July, August, and potentially into September. There may be some conflicts, but we should be able to handle them with detours and one lane of traffic.
But it's not going to start until July 31st?
That's
So
the initial schedule.
August, September is what we're talking
Yes.
about? Yeah, okay.
And they're starting on the west side, coming in?
I'm sorry?
They're coming from the west, going east at Cam? That's not been
the state hasn't made a determination on how best to do the project. I mean, they're going to either move from the south to the north or north to south, I imagine south to north. And I don't know whether, I mean, they are coming from Wilmington, so I'm guessing that they'll be moving east to west.
Joel.
I'm sorry.
Jean had a question.
Yeah, I know there's a way for the public to find out, the progress and where they're going to be working on which days. So does the state do the same thing for the public to be able to find out where they're going to be working on such and such a day?
Yes, the state will have a public information officer assigned to the job. Their weekly schedule will be posted in the banner, much as ours is.
Can I also just ask what are daytime hours? Does that mean they stop at 6, or does that mean darkness?
I don't know at this time.
Okay.
From the perspective of commerce and downtown business, I haven't consulted with everybody, but it would seem like nighttime would be much better for maintaining business through our busiest months of the year, which go through foliage.
If you don't care about sleeping at night.
No. Well,
I see what you're saying. In Old Bennington.
And it'll be right outside your windows.
Anyway, it's, okay.
I think no matter how you look at this, it's going to be not fun.
Just something that needs to be
the end result
done.
will be.
Yeah.
The end result will be.
Yes, it'll be worth it in the end, hopefully, but yeah, it's not going to be fun.
But knowing the rough dates, I mean, we should be able to try to offer some preference from a town level as far as, do we want them to start on the east side and move west, or do we want them to start north and go south, to try to, if the conclusion of the plan is to end near Garlic Fest, or the possibility to push it towards there.
That would be difficult.
Let's create a recommendation that they can hopefully follow, because, I mean, it just seems as though that if we could have some influence on it, it might help business, or it might help, tourists coming to the area.
And it seems like it could really be difficult for Garlic Fest if that's where they're...
I agree.
If the culmination point is the west end.
That's why I said go from that end this way and talk about it. But I don't think we can come up with the process, but I think
the state doesn't have the schedule set or those directions set yet, and they are in constant contact with us, so obviously they are aware of the events and our event schedule throughout the summer, but we don't have the schedules set or the directions set at this present time.
But you do have some influence with...
they've been very cooperative in working with the community to try to, one, give us the opportunity to prepare for it, and two, they'll work with us on whatever necessary detours and rerouting of traffic, availability of traffic to the downtown and to those events as is necessary.
Good.
And you have another item, DBA, Joel.
So the other one, wanted to speak to a couple questions that came up at the last select board meeting. One was about looking at the DBA's analytics on Facebook and our website, and the other was some questions about the details of what our proposal was. And what I'm asking the select board tonight is to allow the DBA to come back, if you'd revisit our proposal at the next select board meeting, give us the opportunity to address those questions.
You know, frankly, I would like to deal with those issues initially offline through our economic development director, have her speak with you, you know, if there are issues that need to come before the board, do that. If we have this hired individual, I'd like to see her be participating in that discussion with the DBA, just to see how this all meshes with the whole program, beyond the DID, really for the entire community. And I think having the analytics would be helpful in that discussion. So I would like to see if Stu could ask Zerwatt to maybe visit with Joel and the DBA to come up with something along those lines. Zerwatt, is that something you could do?
And is that something, we split out economic development from community development, so
this is economic, this is community development.
This is community development,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep. That's how I'd like to handle it and see how that goes.
Okay.
So that if and when we have to visit, we have something to visit with. But I'd like to see Zerwatt have that exchange with you outside the select boards, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that seems fair.
Okay.
Great.
Good, thanks, Joel.
Thanks.
We do have a proclamation relative to EMS Week, and one of the functions that the esteemed Vice Chair has been warming up for is to present the proclamation.
This is a great one to be able to read.
Have we got anyone left? You're out on it. Yeah, okay. Come on up.
It is really something watching all of your people go out in haste. So I'm sorry they aren't here while we read this.
Unfortunately, duty calls sometimes. Thank you all.
Please.
This is a proclamation for EMS Week. Whereas emergency medical services are a vital public service, and whereas the members of the emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury, and whereas emergency medical services have grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now therefore, we the Select Board of the Town of Bennington, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 20th through 26th, 2018 as Emergency Medical Services Week, with the theme, EMS Strong, Stronger Together. We encourage the community to observe and celebrate this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities with those who are there in our time of need. Dated Bennington, Vermont, this 14th day of May, 2018.
You've heard the proclamation, colleagues. All in favor of the proclamation as presented, signify by aye.
Aye.
That's 7 in favor of, and we will sign our names to the proclamation and deliver it to the executive director. While we're circulating that, are there any plans for events during that?
There are, and I knew you were going to ask that, and I totally forgot them all on my desk. I know we have a few events, I believe at a school, there's a couple community things happening, and then we're obviously working to celebrate with our staff. We got some local restaurants that are donating some food and some other things, so it's should be a good week.
Please tell all your staff that had to leave
Yeah.
that we appreciate them too.
Even taking this evening up when they're...
Yeah.
Absolutely.
their
Thank you
call
all.
time.
I will take this opportunity real quick to, we have one quick announcement. We got to celebrate, we had our annual employee engagement dinner last weekend and had a rare occurrence. We got to celebrate Bill Collins. As a longtime Bennington Rescue Squad member, a lot of people that have been around town probably know his name. Celebrate his 40th anniversary with our agency. So got a letter from the governor, and our delegation in Montpelier got a proclamation or a resolution passed. And in this day and age, with the life expectancy of an EMS provider is somewhere in the 5 to 7 year range, someone that still works 2 to 3 days a week as a retirement job is pretty impressive.
That is. That's pretty. That is.
Does he know how many calls he's been out on?
A little over 13,000.
That almost deserves a week of proclamation in itself.
Stu, should we deliver this now? Or
Wow.
You want?
Oh, and I'm Forrest Bond with the Bennington Rescue Squad, and to my left is Timmy Buck. He's one of the EMTs, soon to be AEMTs with Bennington Rescue.
Met him on the way in. Thanks. Thanks very much.
very
Really
much.
appreciate
Thank you.
everything you do. Thanks. Next item on the agenda is making sure I can follow my own agenda. The MHG solar project on Shields Drive. It wouldn't be a board meeting without some discussion about a solar project. So this is a new one.
I'll just do a quick
Yep,
introduction
that's fine.
for folks. This is a solar project proposed for Shields Drive. It is located within a preferred area in our town plan. The Planning Commission did a quick review of the 45-day notice and found that it generally is in compliance with the town plan. The only concern they had, and they've already communicated to the applicant, they'd like just a little bit more information before they make a final determination regarding compliance with our solar screening ordinance. The general consensus of the Planning Commission was that it's very likely to meet that standard, but they're going to present more information to the Public Utilities Commission in their application, which will be more thorough than just the preliminary information they supplied in the 45-day notice. I do have with me here tonight Pete Giese, who works with Thomas Hand on this project, is working with Thomas Hand on this project, and he's here to answer any questions you might have that are in particular specific to that project. So, Pete, if you just want to come up and sit here by the microphone, they can ask you any questions. Yeah.
Hi, Pete.
Hello.
Welcome. Well, thanks for coming in. For Tom, maybe you can just give a little background of the project, where it's come from, and your relationship to the principal, et cetera.
Yeah, so I'm one of the two partners of MHG Solar. Thomas Hand is a Vermont native. I'm a Wisconsin native, but we have about 10 years together in renewable energy development, and we are specifically focused on what our industry would more broadly call brownfield solar developments, so looking at places that comport a little more closely with the various permitting constraints that we're seeing coming up around the country, preservation of prime agricultural areas. So we primarily do rooftop solar, and in Vermont we're focusing on mineral extraction, slate quarries, or in the limited cases where we have towns who have actually moved ahead with their Act 174 energy plans. We commend you guys on doing that. I know it's been a topic here of much discussion. Where towns do select preferred sites, we've been focusing on those, or looking down the road trying to figure out where we think towns likely will select as preferred sites. That's really been our thesis. We're doing largely group net metered solar projects. 500 kW is our preferred size range. So that's about 3.5 acres of panels typically. Usually we try to take advantage of existing access roads, existing infrastructure, minimize the impacts of our projects wherever we can. So we're excited that the town put forth preferred solar sites in a relatively detailed energy plan. The Shields Drive project, some of you are probably aware, Abacus, NSK, there's about 26 acres south of 279 in the northeastern corner of that parcel. Not all of it is usable. It drops off pretty steeply to Furnace Brook. It's basically the last parcel that was left that hasn't been developed yet for industrial use. So we have an option to purchase that, and the idea is that we will put our project in the woods, sort of up in the back corner. So visibility, I know, was raised by the Planning Commission, specifically from the highway. We're doing a detailed visibility assessment, and we'll put in mitigations. We know that there's a screening ordinance in the town, but just the topography of the site, the woods, the highway runs north of us and is probably about 35, 40 feet below the project. The property then slopes away to the south. Because the trees and the highway are north of us, we don't have any shading impacts there, so we'll leave probably a 30-foot buffer of trees on top of that ridge. So from 279, the project won't be visible at all. Our visual consultant thinks that the project won't be visible likely from anywhere, given the dense foliage that's already there. We will look into screening it from the west, which opens up to an industrial park. So NSK, Abacus, Memory Clinic, it's in its current industrial uses. I'm sure some of you know from it being selected as a preferred site. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions about the project, but we're excited to have a town that has located preferred sites, and we think this project has really good prospects for moving forward through the program. So just wanted to start off giving you guys a chance to ask questions about it.
Great. There's another project, another site that's been developed.
There is, yeah, the Maple Leaf project, some of you may be aware of, is a parcel south of us. It's up, built. Not sure, I think it's been operational as far as we know from, I think, the end of 2016. Separate owners, but yeah, that would be south of the parcel that we're on.
They're not contiguous, or?
The parcels share a boundary line, but the projects aren't contiguous.
Go ahead, jump in, anyone, anytime.
I have one question.
Please.
First of all, I'd like to just really thank you for bringing what feels like a very appropriately scaled project in an excellent location, south-facing, already industrial, can't even see it, right next to the highway. I feel really good about that, and I'm happy to hear that you found the work that we did on 174, which was a lot of work, quite frankly, helpful. And I hope that other communities will find it helpful too. I have one very minor concern. It's almost in the category of sort of a pleading request. You probably know that the Bennington Cycle Club built a trail back in there that goes up over from the Global Z and behind the Memory Clinic. Yep. And there are a couple of miles of really nice trails back in there that are kind of a beginner trail network. And if there's any way that the access to the north could be preserved, then 3 of the 4 loops could still be accessed from the existing trailhead. Is there any way that we could ask you to sort of allow that passage on the north side of that?
So I certainly think at this stage it's something we would take under consideration. Once we build the solar project and fence it in, as long as security of the project isn't a concern. It's a little different than a building in that you can't just close doors and completely shut it off, put a fence around it. It's secure. So we'd have to think about just the legalities of inviting people on once it's operational, but aside from that, we don't particularly have any concerns at this point.
But if it was outside of the fence, it would be okay, right? Or
I think at this point, I would say in theory, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'd be great for our community if you would take a hard look at that. A lot of volunteer hours went into creating that. A number of businesses supported that. It's a great little trail network. It's on our town trails map. So if there's any way that access, again, this would be giving up part of the first loop, the fork loop, but would still leave the other 3 loops that are further to the east.
Yeah, and as far as, I would just note that the topography of the site and some of the access and control rights, pretty much where the ground starts to drop off towards the creek, from our perspective, is completely undevelopable. So it's just that upper sort of flat portion of the project. So what we're looking to do is stay as close to the electrical infrastructure as we can, minimize visibility or eliminate visibility, and be in generally as flat an area as we can. So that puts us in a little bit of a box, but basically the eastern half, the southeastern portion of that entire property, we can't physically build panels there.
Good part of that trail is down below grade, and I'm speaking from the challenge of trying to come up one side. It's a good good trail, and it's got some historical benefit to most of us.
Yeah, so it'd be great if we could.
No, yeah, definitely noted.
Thanks
say
very
at this
much.
point, be careful to commit to anything, but understand that it's important, and we'll keep it in mind as well.
Thank you. That's all from me.
Chad?
I'm all set.
I just have one little correction on the list of abutters. You have Mount Anthony Union High School listed. It really should be the Southwestern Vermont Supervisory Union
Oh,
as the owner.
Yeah.
That's all.
yep, noted, thank you.
Any more? I think if you're looking for a sign of consent or any participation, I think based upon what the Planning Commission does relative to that screening issue, you will have the support of the board. As you
I would note, I'd mentioned it to you in the email, I know it's not on the agenda, but just as long as we're here, you will be getting a 45-day notice for one other site off of Gore Road, which should be, it's in a preferred area, and it should be completely within the center of the woods. We're happy to come back and talk about that project as well. The 45-day notice just went out on that, so we'll take all the considerations that we have here and the visual screening and the location. Same exact approach. Look for where preferred areas, hide the project, and hope it meets everybody's goals for energy, aesthetics, preservation of more usable land than what it's currently sitting on.
I have just a few remarks.
Yeah, it's basically, you don't have a unsophisticated board that's listening to tonight because having been down this trail. So the questions are probably pretty material and relevant to this project.
I couldn't be happier. I'm echoing Donald's remarks. Hey, I'm not done yet. I'm so glad that you've been amenable to the work that Donald and I did with respect to the solar siting, and Dan and others. And I wonder if you could infiltrate the Malones.
He's out of order. I don't think there's any.
I couldn't resist. I just couldn't. I think that it'd be nice if you talk to him.
Okay. I think really, unless there are other questions for Pete, well, thank you very much for coming.
Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Great proposal.
Now we have the RFP for the garages, Xerox, and you're going to take that lead, I think, right? Good evening. Good evening.
By the way, Mark is going on after me, so if you want to evaluate who's the better presenter, feel free to do so.
The competition.
I don't know.
No competition here. So, good evening. I'm Zerwat Chaudhry, Community Development Director. I should just clarify for
did
the
I say
public.
economic? You did. I'm so used to it.
It's okay.
But thanks for clarification.
That's why I asked.
The minutes are going to be reflecting.
So I'm here to, we presented the request for proposals that we've put together. Michael McDonough really bore the brunt of this work. He's unable to join us this evening. And this is an RFP for the 2 town garages. And the way it's designed, I'm just going to read out some of the excerpts from the memo. So the RFP is open to private or public institutions or individuals for the lease or purchase of one or both facilities, these being the facilities on Depot Street and Orchard Road. And it underscores that the town wishes to achieve the highest and best community impact and viability with these properties. The proposals should describe as practicable how the revitalized properties meet identified community needs, provide economic impact, create jobs, impact the tax base, advance the arts and culture, expand existing market clusters, create a new market, fill market gaps, promote community well-being, impact youth or young populations, attract visitors, enhance the property, fit the development context, and comply with planning and zoning. So as you can see, we tried to give it as wide a scope and range of possibilities as we could, really to get a sense of, what really can the community come up with.
Zerwat,
Yes.
take a breath. What is an RFP?
Request for proposals, as I said at the beginning. A town staff committee shall review proposals for completeness and responsiveness to the request for proposals and shall make its recommendations to the select board. So just so you have a sense of the process that this will unfold in. But if you have any specific questions about the RFP that we've put in front of you.
I think there might be a couple. One being, how broad is this RFP placed out in the world? Where does this go? Where's the RFP? Who's the audience?
Who's the audience? And again, this is what the kind of broadness of its scope is. If this is going to be somebody who comes in and wants to do a commercial development at this property, that's certainly an option. If there's a more not-for-profit oriented organization that is doing some kind of more direct community wellness or benefit program, they can certainly have scope to do that. It could be everything without naming specific projects from, I think, when Michael McDonough first presented the idea, a preliminary idea for this in May 2017, one of the demo proposals was an architectural conceptual plan for an arts and cultures type space there. It's a question of, in a way, this is an opportunity for us to see what kind of talent and opportunities exist within our community and what can some of those organizers bring to the table. So I really can't predict too much. It can be anything from maybe a more food, agro-related thing. It could be a brewery. I have no idea what will come in our hands.
How are we going to market the RFP? I guess that's really
Yeah, so I'll be, I think, working with our economic development partners, with BCIC, to see really where they've found their best successes in terms of getting word out on RFPs like this. But certainly we'll be putting it out in, I think, the Bennington Banner, I imagine, and other local newspapers as well, but also seeing what are some of the best online forums for getting the word out.
Has there been any interest with respect to the Old Town Garage on Depot Street to this date?
Yes, I've certainly had, I've certainly had some questions from actually the farmers market, I think, or some of the organizers of the farmers market. Certainly more informal questions of what's going on with the garages, no specific, I have an idea. And one of the things that, as you've noticed, we've included in the proposal is that we're going to try to have an open house so that people who are, considering putting together a proposal will have a chance to come and visit the place. And what I was hoping also is that if there may be groups that are not working at that scale, they might be able to even meet others who are interested in putting something together.
Well, before you leave, Zerwatt, I know one specific group that is very interested, and I'd like to tell you before you leave.
Okay. And there's also going to be contact information here for how they can put a proposal together.
But it could be your chance to reach out to them first.
I think, I don't know what the protocol is, but am I allowed to vet people?
Why not?
We can send proposals directly to
Directly,
folks and
okay.
express interest.
Yeah.
Do you have a targeted timeline for this that I overlooked?
So I think, how soon were we
We would hope to get it out within the next 30 days or so, and then there's
Right.
a 45
45
we're
day.
recommending a 45-day response period. We may want to push that out a little bit, but within the next 30 days, we hope to have the RFP out, published. Jim had a very good question, where are we going to publish this? So we're going to look at traditional media, but we're also going to look at specific online media and social media as well. And we have a couple of commercial real estate brokers who have expressed interest in helping us get the word out. So we will be holding them to that. And it is one of those things that's going to be difficult to get it to the people we really want to get it to, but we're going to make every effort to make as much of a splash as possible. We're hopeful that the banner will pick it up as a story, and that will start the ball rolling, and that we'll be able to get it out to as many folks as possible. So that
Well, the banner's here. What do we think the likelihood of that is? Strong, quite strong?
Good.
thumbs up.
Yeah.
Good.
It's on it.
Yeah, and Carson,
Thank you.
this was like you wanted to make sure we got this on the agenda, so you must have a couple follow-ups.
I want you to finish, Dan. I don't want to interrupt, but I just
Well,
have
I'm just saying that is, we recognize and understand that getting this out to folks is very important, and we're going to do everything we can to get it out into the community and into not just the local community, but perhaps the community, the other types of interest groups that may want to take advantage of this opportunity.
Can I ask, to that end, I mean, I really like the idea of having open houses, and I'm wondering if there could be like at least 2 open houses that are, one sort of on the front end, the back end, because I do think that it's both seeing the space and it's also allowing people who look at it and say, ooh, this is more than it's a networking opportunity also, just for people to imagine what might be possible there.
We could certainly include that in RFP, have perhaps more earlier in the process, open house, and then
yeah. I would love
It does feel like a fairly tight timeline when you think about building inspections and hazmat inspections and things like that. But maybe we can...
Well, and again, we're looking for proposals. We don't expect somebody to come ready to buy the thing. We expect there to be negotiation with whoever the selected proposal is. We expect that folks are going to want to do their due diligence. We don't expect everyone to do their due diligence during that 45-day proposal period. I'm sure that any proposal is going to include, subject to confirming that environmental issues are not going to be a problem. Whoever buyer or leaser takes this on will want to make their own organization comfortable that it's not going to be a burden on them. So we don't expect that someone will spend lots of money to do lots of due diligence before they put in a proposal. We fully expect that we'll enter into either a lease agreement or a contract agreement that will allow for all those issues to be vetted over a reasonable period of time.
So if it's a lease agreement, isn't it up to us as a town to have done sort of the hazmat work and, so that we know what we're getting ourselves into? Because if we lease it, then we're the people responsible, are we not?
Yes, but we're already responsible. So if, as a purchaser, you would want to know what you're purchasing, and as an owner of the property, we are already responsible for any issues there, and we feel fairly confident based on previous inspections by the state of Vermont Agency of Natural Resources that there are no significant issues there. But any purchaser is going to be much more careful about getting into the chain of title and potentially having to worry about anything that they don't know about.
Okay.
So Jeannie, we already own the property, so any problems that are there, we own them.
Right, but do we need to do more work before we release this to someone that's leasing the property? Back to your question, is there work that the town needs to do to make sure that we can say, this is appropriate for these kinds of, you can't put a child care center in here because X, Y, and Z, but you could have an art gallery where you're not having people, playing on the floor. Do we have that level of comfort as to whether there are certain kinds of activities that should be prohibited in that building?
Just based on the state inspections, we did not have any limitations on the use of that building.
All right.
But it has been several years since those were done,
But in any sale of a piece of property, you have to do a full disclosure of whatever hazards there may be if the place is haunted. And I know that sounds like a joke, but it's true.
all those records are fully public record. Yeah. Yes.
The essence of it is we'd like to know, if not as much as the buyer, but what we're selling, your question, and without spending a lot of money, I don't think we can answer every question that the buyer might want to ask. That buyer's going to have to ask them and probably pay for getting their own answers.
Yes.
Lacking them. That's pretty much how those deals work.
Yes.
Jean, who always raises her hand.
Okay, and I'm always looking down.
This question may be premature, so if it is, just bear with me, but it's not too early to probably be thinking about these things. I would like to be able to avoid, and maybe you've already thought about this also, is that someone purchases the property and they have a great idea, and then 7 years later, it hasn't been realized. I guess I'm just encouraging us to build in some protections so that does not happen. However that needs to happen, I don't know, but I think it's something we need to be aware of.
I think the RFP is built specifically to vet that sort of issue right up front, and we could certainly if we felt uncomfortable moving forward with a particular purchaser that we didn't think they were going to move forward quickly enough, we really like the idea of the proposal, we could certainly build into any contractual agreement, especially if it's a lease, that if they don't move forward within a certain period of time, that we would retain ownership of the property.
Okay.
But we purposely put in the RFP a lot of information about financial stability, capital that's available for the project, all those sorts of things. So when you folks review these proposals, assuming we get several, you'll have an opportunity to look at that information. And we could certainly follow up with additional questions once we've decided on perhaps a limited number of proposals that we'd like to take a closer look at. We could bring folks in and interview them. We could even ask for financials. There's lots of ways.
We currently do, actually. We ask for financial performance.
Right.
So.
Right. Yes.
Have you contemplated what a lease amount would be, a yearly or, no?
That's all going to be, that's why
Worked out.
we want to leave this as flexible as possible. The idea is that, you folks are going to have to make a decision. Do you want to maximize financial return, or do you want to maximize community benefit? Is it a combination of both? And that's why these proposals, we want to leave it as loose and as creative as possible for folks so that they can tell their story to you and hope that they're selected. So we're hoping that we generate significant interest. We know there's some interest, at least in both facilities. Whether or not this will generate significantly more, we're very hopeful. And we're very hopeful that we get some creative proposals.
And to Michael's credit, he's really put together a very thoughtful proposal that accommodates a range of different proposals, whether it's one that's going to say we're going to come in and have this very successful commercial enterprise, or we are a community group, we're doing some amazing work, we're still figuring some things out, hopefully not 7 years down the line, but so that they can each make their case.
So was the decision made that we're going to retain the property and lease it? I thought.
No.
Okay, so we could still sell it outright.
It's flexible.
It's flexible. The decision is up to you folks when you review the proposals.
My question was really addressing if we sell it and it's out of our control. Leasing it, yes, you would have the opportunity to.
And the proposals can be to
break the
lease
lease
or purchase.
Well, I'm sorry, what?
The proposals can be to lease or
Okay.
purchase.
Okay.
We want to leave it as flexible as possible. We didn't want to tie people down with specific restraints to the extent possible. We wanted to give folks as much leeway as possible to be creative.
If someone did want to purchase it, once it's been purchased, we would have no more say over it than we would on any other private purchase.
You can always put covenants on.
conditions in the sale.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I just looking back now, I couldn't be, I've said this to everyone, I couldn't be more excited about, we kind of have a really fortunate opportunity in these two buildings, or building and the other property.
Kind of a building.
For those who know that, especially one building. But even more so, you guys have really captured the essence of the project right off the get-go. The RFP right here is broad, it's exciting, I love talking about it, I love thinking about it, because we can link together the traditional roots as far as an entrepreneur in town looking at the space for kind of expansion or new ideas, wonderful. The linkage to the outside world with social media, leveraging that is great. And I like how broad you kept it, because really, we might have some traditional ideas that could go in there. You said a fuse or what, but hopefully some people come out of the woodwork and see, here's a great community, a wonderful opportunity to land in the downtown, and we can be really flexible on how to get them in the door. Whether it becomes a lease to buy or access to town revolving loan funds to grant money. There's a ton of things we can do here to land a great entity in the immediate downtown next to the Putnam redevelopment. I think it's really speaks volumes to kind of what everyone's doing here as far as rowing the boat. So.
Actually, Kirsten, hearing you speak, I'm almost wondering, maybe one of the things I can try and do is when we do this open house is to see if there can be like a bank, or I can certainly make my loan information available. So what are some of the kind of ancillary services we can make available on the ground that day?
I think it's perfect. There's just so many ways we can kick this off with excitement. And the Bennington banner picks it up is fantastic, but I do think there's even, we can platform off that even more so. Donald said this, the RFP process is fine as far as getting it out there. I do think we're going to probably need more than that 45-day window following. It's just a guess, but I would love to land on some fantastic ideas right off the first swing at it, but I think we're going to need a little more time. But again, I know everything's just kind of in flow right now, or in flux, so.
And that's good for us to know, is because I think we went with a time frame wanting to know, would the select board give us a bit more time if need be?
It's great.
Anything else?
Quick question. If someone has some preliminary interest and they're not ready to fill out an RFP, who would be the contact point person? Can I have them contact either one of you, or?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Thank you.
And I'll have to figure out too how to fill that in RFP.
And are the obligations, actually, this is a question for Tom, some lawyer, but are the obligations of the town any different than they would be for an individual? So if we put this RFP out and say no community groups come forward with a proposal that's viable, and we're left with a number of cash offers, essentially, and we don't like any of those cash offers, can we decline all of them and resubmit?
Any or all of them,
Yep.
yep.
Okay, so we have no obligation, there's no, okay, very good.
Basically, an
Thank you.
RFP is to get a statement of interest, frankly, because by the time you get the purchase agreement, it's going to have so many conditions anyway, but you'd like to filter out those that are just tire kickers versus those that might have a sincere ability and interest.
Is there an estimated value of, for the Depot Street property as of now?
I'm sure that John could generate one. Yes.
Stu, do you know?
Not off the top of my head, no. Okay. Every property, even tax-exempt properties, have a value assigned to them. I just don't know what this one is.
But I wouldn't let that value scare away anybody for putting in a business proposal. I mean, I really just...
It'd be nice to get it on the tax rolls, but that's
Yeah.
not a condition precedent even. There are other options.
Well, I remember several years ago that somebody expressed an interest in it, and I went to the town office to see the town assessor, and the price tag on it, the Depot Street property was over $1 million, and I thought, what? That included the parking lot as well, but the building itself had not been quantified. So, anyway.
So, carry on, right? You don't need anything more than...
That's all we
Thank
need.
you.
Just want to make sure that you
Thank you.
are satisfied and we can proceed. So.
We're ecstatic.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you.
is
Great.
exciting, thank you.
And maybe you can just report back 45 days out. How,
Yes.
Or up, or more often even.
Or, well, yeah, if you feel like you need more publicity. Now, we've taken care of the garages. Now for some exciting trail system discussion. Someone asked me how the name Ninja Path came to be. Does anybody know?
That's a good question.
I don't.
Dan, you're going to have to explain, Tom asked why the Ninja Path got its name.
How
so.
did it get-
Oh, we will explain.
Yeah, see?
All will be revealed.
Wait, and so you guys are responsible for these?
We an anonymous ninja donated the money to purchase those.
I'm sorry, is what they
swag
went.
bags.
I was just,
As you know, all the ninjas are anonymous, but this ninja one especially wanted to remain anonymous. So
that's great.
that's we'll talk about some of those efforts when we get to the ninja trail. So I'm just going to kick it off, and then Mark's going to do most of the talking because he's better at PowerPoint and younger and better looking than me. But I'm just going to get started. We've been asked by the select board, and we hope to do this every year, to do an update on our progress towards our vision for a trail system in the town of Bennington. As you know, we have several active projects in the pipeline, and we wanted to update you on all the status of all of those, give you a little background of how we got here, where we're going, and in particular, where we are in the timeline of the grants that we're working under to obtain significant portions of funding for these projects. So I also have, in addition to Mark Anders, who's the transportation planner for the Bennington County Regional Commission, Mark, I also have Nick Myron, who is with MSK Engineering, and he's here to answer all the hard technical questions about design, because Mark and I don't have that capacity. So Nick is here. He works with Jason Dolmich at MSK and is part of our team and attends our weekly project meetings as we continue to work with the state and federal governments to move these projects forward. So I think what we'd like to do, if you guys are satisfied with the process, is we'd like to we'll give you a quick overview and then go project by project and take questions after each project so that it's fresh in your mind, each project. And does that work for you, Mark?
That works for me.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to let Mark take it away. And if you have, like I said, if you have any questions, just ask us as we go through and finish each project up. So thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. So we got the technology to work, which seems like kind of like a miracle. It wasn't looking good.
Yeah, we were here 4.5 hours early and it wasn't looking good.
We bought the right cord, so everything works. Okay, so this is, we have, as Dan mentioned, we have actually five federally funded shared use path projects that are in planning and development right now in Bennington. And this is kind of the vision. And when I say paths, shared use paths, I'll get into what that is, but basically a shared use path is like a limited access highway for non-motorized transportation. And the black paths are the ones that are already exist, and the purple ones are the ones that we're working on. Those are the ones in the planning, the design phase. And the yellow lines are the on-street connections. So I'm just going to briefly go over the 5 projects, and then I'll go into them in more detail. So the first one, let's start with the Ninja Path. The Ninja Path starts at the corner of Silk Road, 67A, College Drive, and part of it's already been built, and it will go behind Hannaford and Morse Road, and behind Walmart, to the pedestrian bridge that is there now, and from there you can take it down all the way, you can get all the way downtown. So that's one. The next one is the Applegate to Willowbrook Path, which is a short path between Applegate Apartments and Willowbrook Apartments. Number 3 is the Rail Trail project, which goes from the Walloomsac Path up to kind of behind Applegate Apartments. And the next one is the Kosher Drive path, which goes from East Road to the kind of the Dewey Street, Northside Drive, Aldi entrance intersection right there. And the 5th one is the Benmont Ave project here. So those are all 5 path projects that we have going. And I just want to sort of define what a shared use path is. If I can get the slide to advance. Uh-oh. Ah, phew. Man, scary. This is a shared use path that goes between Northampton and Amherst, and I was on it last fall. And this gives you the kind of the idea. This is a limited access highway for bikes, pedestrians, skateboarders, rollerbladers, whatever. And one of the cool things about projects like this is that they're both transportation and they're also recreation. So they have sort of a dual purpose. And I'll just throw out a couple of statistics if you believe in statistics like this. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation estimates that for every dollar spent in Vermont on walking paths, probably you save about $3 in obesity-related medical expenses. So there's a great cost-benefit ratio to that. And then there's been many, many studies showing that homes and businesses along shared use paths are 4 to 20% more valuable than businesses or homes that are not along shared use paths. So really a very valuable amenity. This is the Ashawiltikuk path that goes between Pittsfield and Adams, and actually they're going to extend it to downtown Pittsfield and to North Adams and possibly to Williamstown. It's a really great path. And this just gives you an idea how popular these things get. This one is in New York City, runs along the entire west side of Manhattan. I've been on it many times, and it's, as you can see, it's very popular. So that's kind of what a shared use path is. So the first path I'm going to talk about is the Kosher Drive shared use path. And this is Kosher Drive. This is a little bit awkward. There's an existing path on East Road that goes up to the middle school. And so this path will go along Kosher Drive. It will cross Route 7, and it will connect to the rail trail here. And this is CVS. That gives you kind of an idea what it is. Now, the federally funded project begins here at Performance Drive. This is what we have funding for from the feds, and the town has agreed to build kind of the easy part here. So that's really what that project is. And I'm going to give you a little detail of what the path looks like. It's a 10-foot wide path. This is Route 7. So we're going to narrow this down a little bit. We're removing one lane here, and there will be a pedestrian refuge island. There'll be a pedestrian signal, so you'll hit a button, and then you'll be able to cross. And this is why we need the project, because every day after school, you'll see many kids walking along the shoulder. And I think this is an example of a street that was designed without everybody in mind. You know, whoever designed this wasn't thinking about all the people that were trying to use this. These are some kids running for their lives across Route 7. And, you know, we really want to encourage kids to walk and bike, and I really don't see how this infrastructure, the way it's now is designed now, is really encouraging that. It's really discouraging it. And same thing, this is pretty unbelievable. This is the limited access highway here, but this is what you have to do to get across the street now. So we're going to fix this situation. Another shot. It's pretty bad. So I think this will be a great project. Now, all these projects are federally funded, and there are many, many steps that you have to go through. It's a linear process. We came up with 36 steps, and I think all of us are obsessed about getting things crossed off so we can get to construction. We've been working on this for quite a while, and most of the hard steps are done. We have all the right-of-way, we have many of the permits, I think there's one tiny design detail left that we're working out with V-Trans, but we're almost ready to put this one out to bid. So that's really where that is. And
Project completion anticipated date?
So we hope to, so our, where we are right now, we have a federal grant, state federal grant. We have commitment from the town, as you folks have done in the past, to build the first portion. And we are just about to get, we hope, final approval for the design. We have identified a shortfall of funding that we need to fill, and we have made a request to V-Trans to fill that gap. We hope that they will fill some of it. We don't expect them to fill all of it, and so we will likely be putting in an additional grant fund request in June. We hope that that will be awarded. And when do they usually award that?
It'll be awarded in the fall.
So in the fall. So we hope that we can go to construction as early as this fall.
Right.
It's probably more likely it's a spring construction.
And that's just that one small little section of this whole map?
Excuse me?
Yeah.
It's just that one little section, the Kosher Drive Path section?
Yep.
Yes, that's what we're talking about right now.
No, I know, I'm just trying to put that in perspective. If we have,
Wait, but are you talking about the little, you mean across 7?
No, it goes from Performance Drive to Aldi.
Yeah, so it's the big piece. It's the whole.
just go back 2 slides.
Go back to
The red one with the red line?
I think we're talking maybe 2 different whole lines.
Yeah, so
No, one more. No, one more. Keep going. So I guess a few more. We're talking just the part above, yeah, right there.
Yes.
So all that, just to get that section?
All that just to get any project.
Yeah.
What's the approximate cost for the total cost for that? We can hear this number.
Okay, so I did include in.
I know, I'm just trying to put it, it's amazing. I'm not faulting anyone, it's just amazing. the
No, it
amount
is
of effort.
amazing, and it's shocking to us too. So I did include in your packet that sort of information, so that I have a cheat sheet here I can look at. So the estimated cost, I'm glad everybody's sitting down, to do this federal project is $833,000. We have state and federal grants of $653,000 already granted. We've requested an additional $150,000, and we have already impact fees in reserve of $50,000. So we believe that we probably have a shortfall of around $130,000, depending upon the amount of additional state and federal funding we get. And we will be requesting that in June. You probably are seeing a common denominator. You will see a common denominator throughout all these projects because they take a minimum of 4 and normally take 7 to 8 years to complete. By the time you get to construction, the original construction budget is blown, and you often, in fact, most projects we've done, we've had to go back to the state to seek more funding. Now, because Mark's prowess in writing grants, we've never been denied a grant, but we have to keep our fingers crossed that this one goes through as well. But we feel pretty good. Mark keeps telling me they fund these projects because when they're ready to go, they want to get them moving, and this project will be ready to go in about a month. We can bid it out if we had the funds. We are at the end. So That's the Kosher Drive project.
Can I just ask a quick question about that one in particular? Because it's such an issue of safety, does it get any special prioritization when through the process?
Yeah, I mean, VTrans has been pretty willing to accommodate us. And they do take safety into concern. You know, pictures like that are pretty hard to say no to. I think the need is pretty obvious.
When you say priority, we think that it helps with our funding, but it does not, no matter what you do, it does not help with speeding the process, unfortunately.
That's kind of what I meant.
The process is an extremely onerous, time-consuming process. Like Mark mentioned, it's very linear. So until you check this box, you can't go to the next box. And frankly, VTrans, just like every other government agency, doesn't have enough staff. And this these types of projects aren't the highest priority for them. You know, they got to get their paving projects done. They got to do, get the roads plowed, et cetera. So we struggle to get the attention that these projects we think deserve, but we keep pushing. So it is a common denominator that these projects take a long time and way longer than they should based on the complexity of the projects.
And
Yeah,
the
I'll give you
cost
one
is
example.
astronomical.
Sorry?
The cost is just astronomical.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, infrastructure is expensive, and when you add federal funding, you have to go through the same process you have to go through if you're building a major highway, even if you're just building a path. You have to go through all the design approvals, and you have to go through the NEPA process, and
NEPA is the environmental clearance process, which takes a minimum of a year to get through.
Yeah.
Traffic studies.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and another example is we wanted to shorten the crossing distance, and it seemed like there were more lanes that were needed on the southbound lane. So some folks at the agency didn't agree with us, so we had to do a whole traffic study just to prove that it wouldn't cause traffic Armageddon, which of course it didn't, but that set us back a long time.
So these are all federal guidelines that are really...
Yes. Yep.
Did we pick the hardest section first? I'm not
When you say
kidding.
hardest section, you mean hardest project first?
Yeah, of all these Kosher Drive versus the rail trail versus the...
I would say when you say hardest...
Well, I mean hardest, let's put hardest...
The rail trail has probably been the most difficult, but we'll get to that one. Yes. And, but kosher has actually been pretty typical for these types of projects, unfortunately.
Yeah.
This is the road you have to take in order to, it's the bargain you make in order to get federal and state funding.
Yeah, I mean, I work in 17 towns, and I work on even really small projects like sidewalk projects, and when you get this kind of funding, even sidewalk projects are very, very difficult.
So, going forward, Mark and I have discussed this at length. Any project that's not what we consider very large, we're probably not going to be able to recommend that we apply for this type of funding because it is so onerous. For instance, look how quickly we were able to get the Bennington College, the section from Bennington College to Hannaford done. That was a partnership with Bennington College, and the Highway Department helped out, and we were able to build that within about a year and a half, even with an onerous VTrans design process. So, there are trade-offs, but, we need to take advantage of whatever funding sources we have, and sometimes it's just trade-off is a lot of time-consuming process.
What you consider large? Is 833 considered large in your
I
world?
would think that you wouldn't even want to look at projects that are less than $1 million.
In their entirety? Or?
For their cost, yeah. For instance, we went for the Ninja project, even though we kind of said to ourselves we weren't going to try to do that. We were going to try to build it piece by piece because it was $1 million project. And we thought it was probably worth the time and effort to do that. But again, it comes with a 5 to 7 year delay automatically right out of the gate. So that's the bad news, but the good news is most of these steps have been taken in almost all of these projects as you see going forward. So we are near the finish line on most of these. Doesn't feel like it, but we are very close to the finish line in most of these projects. So.
Okay, so let's go to the next one. This is the Applegate to Willowbrook path. And just a quick overview. This is Applegate Apartments. These are Willowbrook Apartments. This is the Molly Stark School. And this project came about, I got a call from someone at the Molly Stark School who said that the rate of absenteeism is higher for the kids at Applegate than it is at Willowbrook. And the simple reason is that kids from Willowbrook can just walk right to school, and there's no way for the kids from Applegate to walk to school if they miss the bus. Orchard Road is a very dangerous road to walk on. And so the obvious solution was to connect the two so that people can simply walk from Applegate to Willowbrook and then to school. And it's a challenging site. Most of this was privately owned. It's wetlands, there's a river, there's a big elevation change between Applegate and Willowbrook. So that's probably why it hadn't been done before. And this is what Orchard Road looks like. As you can see, it would be very difficult and expensive to build a sidewalk there. You see a lot of people walking on the road. This is the view from Applegate to Willowbrook, so this is kind of where the path is going to go. And people have really taken things into their own hands and done a little bit of their own trail making. You can see how desperate people are for a connection. I think we can do better than this for infrastructure. So this one, we've really gotten almost all the steps done, and we put it out to bid a month or two ago, and unfortunately the bids came in way higher than the cost estimate or the money that we had. So we're looking to see how we can lower the cost of the project. I think the bids came in higher because there were new steel tariffs that just went in. It was not a very competitive bidding environment. The bidders were working with limited information about the soil quality, so we did some test drilling so people wouldn't bid with the worst case scenario in mind. And we're gonna reevaluate. We're gonna do some value engineering with this one to see if we can get the cost down and get this out to bid again.
And we did just clear the pathway alignment, so if you guys just want to take a look and see where it's going to go, it's been cleared and you can see it. I do want to, with regard to this one, I want to thank some folks who've been really helpful with this project. We've gotten donations from, or contributions of funding from Bennington School District, the Southern Vermont Medical Center, Southwestern Vermont Medical Center, from Vermont, Housing Vermont, Shires, the United Way, the Whipstock Hill Preservation Society, and BCRC and the town have also committed funds and staff. So this is really a project that's been supported by several organizations in the community, so we're going to really work hard to find a way to get this done as soon as possible.
What's the project cost again, approximately?
So we think the project cost will end up being about $300,000. We'd hope to get it under 200. Right.
Is that project, as you just shown that last picture, is that current? Like that picture right now? You said you.
This picture is a few years old.
So Dan, did you just say that you have?
We sent in a contractor to clear it so that we could do some drilling about soil conditions and hopefully show folks that they don't have to budget for the worst case scenario about pylons or what are we calling them?
Helical piles.
Helical piles to go through the wetlands, because we have to build a boardwalk to get through the wetland areas.
That answered my next question. So the plan isn't to pave through there, the plan is to put it on a boardwalk of some sort.
We have to put it on boardwalk because of the wetlands regulations. Yeah. So.
All right. So let's go on to the biggest project, the Ninja Path. And I'll give you a quick overview of what that is. A little more detail. So as I mentioned, it goes from the Bennington College entrance to, and people can really, North Bennington is up here, as you know, so people can go through the Bennington College campus from North Bennington, and they can avoid, the whole goal with this is to avoid the whole, 67A Northside Drive road while still having access to the businesses. So not a very fun road or inviting or safe road to walk or bike on. And so we'll go behind Hannaford, we'll go under Route 279, it will cross the Furnace Brook, there will be a connection to Morse Road, it will go behind the Morse Road Industrial Park and connect to Harmon Road. Walmart has built a little section of the Ninja Path here, so we'll connect with that to Hicks and then to the pedestrian bridge. So that's the overview of the Ninja Path. And this is just a shot of 67A, kind of from the perspective of somebody walking along here, and as you can see, a lot of people do walk along the edge of the road. We have some sidewalks. I think to get a building permit, you probably have to put a sidewalk in, but this is kind of a sidewalk to nowhere. We're slowly filling that in, but it just shows you why we need this path. So phase 1, as Dan mentioned, was built by the town, and that ends by Hannaford. And this is what it looks like if you haven't been on it. It's a beautiful path. It's 12 feet wide, so there's enough room for people to walk abreast or bike without running into somebody. We also made some safety improvements to the intersection. There's a pedestrian refuge island. It was really pretty scary to cross here. And the other thing the pedestrian refuge island does is it slows traffic down. This was a high crash location. It was on the state list of high crash locations. A lot of people would pull out of Silk Road and get nailed by people traveling down 67A. And I haven't seen the 5-year crash statistics yet because it hasn't been up there long enough, but I'm sure that the crashes will go down as a result of this. So that's phase 1. And phase 2, because these projects take so long, we wanted the public to be able to enjoy this project immediately. So we decided to take it into our own hands and build a kind of a temporary dirt path. So that starts where the paved path ends, and it goes to Morse Road, and then from there you can bike on the road and you can connect with the Walmart path.
So that entry path is complete, it is open, we have signed it. I know you've got some other slides, so I didn't want to.
Yes.
But we invite everyone to go check it out. And you and Zerwatt are leading a path tour. When is that? June
2nd, I think.
June 2nd is part of the, was it National Trails Day? So anybody who wants to come out and check out the Ninja Path with Mark and Zerwatt, I might join them too. Let that scare you off. It's really very, very, if you've never been back there, it's surprisingly beautiful, and we got photos. So it's a pretty unique environment back there compared to what you typically see going down 67. So.
Right. Yeah, and this is, we built 2 timber bridges to do this project. This is goes over a culvert behind Price Chopper, and all the lumber that came, Hannaford, and all the lumber that we used came from the town forest and was milled. So they were very, very low-cost bridges.
And they're milled by CDC students, so yeah. It was great collaboration.
And I'm so happy with the way this one came out. This was the one over the Furnace Brook. So it's really a beautiful, beautiful bridge.
What did the state think about that, when they came down?
Well, it's funny you say the state. So there's different parts of the state. There's the project manager, and we brought the project manager down, and the weather cooperated with us, which was great. And he walked the project with us, the entire length of it, Mr. Kaplan. And he said, I hope I'm still with the state when you open this so I can be here to cut the ribbon with you. He thought it was a great project. And most people, back even to Sue Minter when she was secretary of the HC of Transportation, most people, when they see this project, they really get excited about it because it does have such a two-prong, it accomplishes 2 very important goals. As Mark has mentioned, it's recreational, so it's fun and it attracts people. But it also is a really important transportation link for folks that want to get from North Bennington to Bennington and any place in between without driving a car or getting in a bus. So actually, Mark and I were out doing some trail maintenance on the dirt path, and we met some folks who we asked them, how did you find out about the Ninja Trail? And they said, we were just staying at the Hampton Inn and we saw the signs. So it's our first tourist on the Ninja Trail, so that was fun. But this is definitely the project that we get most excited about because there's so much community support for it. We've already gotten tons of donations from folks. Bennington College has worked with us very closely on the first phase. So we've talked to every single property owner that will be impacted by rights of way or easements that we're going to be seeking. And except for one person that we still hope will come around, they have been enthusiastic about the rights of granting us easements. And in fact, I just want to give a shout out to the folks that own the property around the Hampton Inn, the Gordon companies. Jeff Gordon, actually, when we asked him for an easement, he said, I don't just like this project, I love it. And he gave us an easement for the entire length along his property without much cajoling whatsoever. So we're having great community support, and we hope to keep that rolling, which is why we wanted to get this open so folks could see that we're making progress as we slog through the federal and state process. But sorry to steal your thunder there, Mark, but
That's okay. Yeah, and so there are a lot of volunteers. United Way helped us out, moving tires that had washed up. And we got some help from BATS, the Bennington Area Trail Systems volunteers. So thanks to all those people that helped. So let's go to the Ninja signs and maybe why it's called the Ninja Path. And the Ninja Path, the origins of the Ninja Path are somewhat murky. It was started by a shadowy group of volunteers who wanted to create this connection, so they would go into the honeysuckle thicket with their machetes and their loppers on weekends and at night. And so they were nicknamed ninjas. And then Greg Van Houten's studio came up with this really awesome logo. So it's kind of a nickname that has stuck. And this is a picture of some ninjas that I took. And you can see them, as I said, at dusk sometimes, but they're very shy, so they didn't want any publicity. So there's some ninjas. And so we've signed the whole route. These are the signs that we put up recently, and we also put some stencils so people can kind of follow these ninja signs and get from follow the path. This is where it transitions into the dirt path. And these are some signs that we just put up on Morse Road, some stencils. And so phase 3, we are hoping to put a path along the Woolumsac from kind of from Furnace Brook to the pedestrian bridge along the river, and so people can avoid Morse Road. And I think this part is a little less defined. We were really focusing on getting this part open, so this may happen soon.
If we can get property owner approval, then we would probably extend the dirt path closer to the final alignment, which is what this shows.
Yeah, and then phase 4 will be the final federally funded project, which will go from the end of that path to the Walmart path.
And that'll be a full width, 10 to 12 foot wide paved path, the entire length, so that it can accommodate the most amount of users.
Right, it'll be 1.3 miles, just that section. And this is where we are in the process, and we don't have quite as many things crossed off. And one reason was between when we finished the scoping study and when we got the grant to do this path, the Agency of Natural Resources passed new river corridor regulations, which really affected the alignment. And we didn't want to move forward until we had a solid memorandum of understanding with the Agency of Natural Resources Rivers Program, what we could do and what we couldn't do. So we met with them many, many times, and we worked out a memorandum of understanding, and we're there. And we've also worked out with the wetlands program what they would be willing to permit. So that's a major hurdle that we crossed.
Maybe this is for Nick. You're going to have to move the bridges to comply with that.
Well, the main point of that June 1st meeting with wetlands, rivers, and Fish and Wildlife was to get them to move the bridge back to the original location, which was further south, and they all agreed to it, which was great because it eliminates the wetlands impacts for the entire Furnace Brook crossing, and it makes the path alignment make a lot more sense. So they did all agree, so the meeting was a success.
Great. Quickly, paper it.
Yeah. We're working on it. Nick's working on it, I should say.
Yeah, no, you're totally right.
And where we are now, specifically in the process, we're waiting for the NEPA clearance, which is essentially the environmental clearance. And once we have that, we'll be able to go straight to preliminary design. Nick and his firm will do that, and we'll start working through the steps.
Right.
We expect probably the next most difficult portion will be, not that we expect a lot of pushback, but it takes a lot of time and effort, is getting the individual easements papered and signed. And it's a very time-consuming process, but as soon as, I think once the preliminary plans are approved, we can begin with that process. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
How many easements?
Many.
But I'm just trying to think, It's probably no more than 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we already have several. For instance, Hannaford's already given one, the self-storage folks have already given one. So Weaver Construction's already given us an easement on Morse Road. And we've gotten verbal commitments from, again, all the other property owners except for one, which we're still working on. So, but we feel really good about the progress on the right-of-way. We haven't encountered any resistance except for that one property owner.
Okay, so the next project is the Bennington Rail Trail.
Just approximate value.
Oh, sorry.
Cost for that project.
Approximate cost is, for the Ninja Pen, I got right here. So the estimated cost is approximately $1.1 million, and we have a state and federal grant of $1 million, and municipal funds will be of $110,000 will be needed to meet the local match.
Say that again? What about the local match?
10%.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, about 10%, yes. It is exactly.
That's already been reserved, though.
We have reserved for the rail trail, but not for Ninja. And now our plan for the Ninja is to use, assuming you folks agree with it and Stuart does, to use funds that we'd normally put towards sidewalk extensions over a 2-year fiscal year period. So that'd be 50 and 50, just similar to what we're doing for the kosher project, is using $50,000 of our sidewalk funding that we would normally put into our budget to cover those costs. So we would hope that it wouldn't be a big bump in what we're looking for from the taxpayers because we can spread it out over 2 years and use funding that we normally use for sidewalk extensions.
Okay, so the second to last project we'll talk about is the Bennington Rail Trail. So that really goes from around Depot Street, where the existing Loomsack path is, and it goes up the abandoned rail corridor between Benmont and North Street, crosses Kosher Drive, and it goes up kind of behind Applegate Apartments. And this is what it looks like now, if you haven't been back there. And this is really what we're trying to create. This is, again, the Asher-Woltecook Rail Trail. And there's a very cool rail bridge that we're going to use.
I've got a question about the rail bridge there.
Yep.
My brothers and I used to jump off that bridge and play chicken with trains that were coming through there. Yes, we did. And we had lots of flattened pennies. But anyway, you're going to will this be, presumably, will be rehabbed?
Yes,
Yeah.
that deck will be redone. Yes, yeah. We have approval from the railroad and the state of Vermont, including historic preservation, which had a little problem with it, but they've agreed that what we're proposing is okay. So Mark's going to get to the slide, but we're very close to finishing this project. So we have submitted what was called final plans to the state for their review. We hope to have approval for that within the next probably 2 months. We have gotten, there's only one piece of right-of-way other than the railroad right-of-way that we need, and we've gotten that, and the state has accepted that right-of-way grant, and we have just completed, or well, I say we, our attorneys have just completed all the paperwork necessary to convert via the federal government, the Surface Transportation Board, the rail corridor to a rail trail corridor. There's a very formal process that takes probably up to 6 months, federal process to formally convert a rail corridor to a rail trail corridor. We are waiting, VTrans, we're waiting signatures from the Vermont Railway, and once we get those, we can file with the Surface Transportation Board and begin that process, and that will complete the right-of-way process. The good news about this, we have funding for it, and we have in reserve $100,000 for the match. We expect the cost of the project to be about $1 million. The good thing about this particular grant, it was done when they funded projects, not necessarily based on how much they were going to cost, but whether or not they were a good project or not. So we are not, of course we have to be careful, but we're not strictly limited to a cost amount. So in other words, if it came in at 1.1 or 1.2, as long as we can meet the match, the state and the federal government is obligated to construct that project. So we're in a little better position here as far as cost is concerned, as long as we don't as long as it doesn't go up significantly and we have to come up with significantly more match funds. So we are hoping this one can be constructed in 2019, which is next year.
Is that
So
paved or just?
we're very hopeful. This project, as some of you might know, maybe Stuart's probably the only one that remembers, but Helen White started working on this project over 20 years ago. So we have had lots of problems with the railroad. They are now very cooperative, and we feel confident we can move forward. But it's taken a long time to get here, that's for sure. So,
Is that a paved pathway? Paved?
it is currently contemplated as a paved path from the depot to Orchard Road, and then it will be a cinder path from Orchard to Applegate, where it crosses the Furnace Brook down to Applegate. Now, it doesn't mean we couldn't pave it. There's no permitting requirements. It's more of a cost issue, and
It's the old rail trail bed anyway,
yes,
so it should be.
Yeah, it will be
Yeah.
in really good shape. In fact, as a runner, I'll prefer the cinder path to the paved, but we'll just have to see. Folks may want to have it paved, and over time we may pave the rest of it. But it is contemplated that the section from the rail depot to Orchard will be paved as part of the grant-funded project. So again, that's a 2019 construction. I should go through those. So, and we're looking at 2020 for Ninja Trail, and we talked about Kosher and Applegate already. So.
Okay, so the last project is the Benmont Ave Active Transportation Corridor, and that goes from the Northside Drive intersection with Benmont down to Main Street. Really, the meat of the project will be from Hunt Street to about the mill. This part will be painted bike lanes. And this is kind of why we need the project. The sidewalk ends just north of the mill building. You've probably seen lots of people walking along the shoulder. And it's really, right now, this kind of this operates as a path. So what we want to do is, this is a photo simulation of what we want to do. We'll make that shoulder path using the existing pavement, and we will saw cut out some pavement and create this green strip with trees. So I think it will make the whole Benmont corridor much more attractive and safer for people using it. We also will do some access management. This is one of the biggest driveway accesses in the state, 618 feet, and it's actually quite dangerous because there are so many conflict points, and people kind of pull out of here going about 40 miles an hour sometimes at weird angles. And one of the surprising things, when we did the scoping study, we looked at crash history for a 5-year period between 2006 and 2010, and there were 91 crashes on Benmont Ave with 29 injuries. So it's really quite a dangerous street, so I think this project will help make it safer. And we're also going to do a lot at the Benmont Hunt Street intersection. This is the way it looks now. And
Was there a specific location where most of those accidents?
a lot were, and
Right at there?
where I showed you that slide, and at this intersection and at the other intersections. So this is the kind of the plan we have now for that intersection. Right now, it doesn't come in at a 90-degree angle, so we'll make it a 90-degree angle. We'll add a lot of landscaping. The path will come in like this, and then we'll connect to Hunt Street so people can get over to the Ninja Path. There'll be a connection to the rail trail here. There will be a pedestrian refuge island in the middle of the street. Right now, there's a lot of traffic coming in both directions, so you have to wait a long time to cross the street. But with a pedestrian refuge island, you just need a break going one direction, and then you can wait, and then you can cross.
And we think this is really, really important, this particular area, because it does tie in several pathway projects. It's a node or a nexus of the rail trail, the Ninja Path, also if you're coming from Kosher and coming down the rail trail, and then of course ties into Benmont Avenue. So we think this is this is the most important part of this project, and it really creates a way for everybody to use almost all of the pedestrian and bike paths that we had as safe crossing. So.
And this is where we are in the process. We're awaiting the NEPA clearance any day. That takes quite a long time, and once we get that, we can move on to preliminary plans.
Must be interesting to look in your mailbox to see in these projects what's coming in on a particular day, or what's not coming in, I guess, sometimes.
Yeah, we have weekly project meetings, and we pound our fists a lot
Yeah.
and bang our heads against the wall a lot, but we keep pushing forward.
Yeah. And just the very last slide, the town got a municipal planning grant to do sort of an infrastructure study of the North Street corridor and the Northside Drive area right around North Street. So BCRC did the study, and I won't go into the study, just tell you that we did it, and we look at, we kind of imagine the area once all of these projects are built and try to imagine whether we really have the right connections, whether there's a little bit, some connections that we need to add. So I made some recommendations, and then also looking at some of the major intersections, coming up with some recommendations for future projects.
And that is included in your swag bag donated by that anonymous ninja. So you folks, if you have any questions or if you'd like us to come back and talk about that project, we're happy to do that. But we figure we probably spend enough of your time this evening on the projects that are ongoing.
Right, and this you can find this on the BCRC website under Bennington. You can download the PDF of this report.
Questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So this is fantastic, and I'm really so happy that you've done this, because I'm always sort of like, I don't know where these things are. So it's nice to understand where they are and why they are there. So so in a couple years, when these come to fruition, I'm just thinking, you mentioned bats at one point. Is there a plan to sort of have like an overarching trail and recreational path, I don't know, index, so that we can publicize everything that we have in the community, whether it's rural or more, in town?
I mean, I think all of us on the team believe this is an incredible community asset that will bring lots of benefits for folks that live here, as well as bring folks in as a tourist attraction. And we've already started, and Donald actually helped out some on we already have a map that shows all the existing, not all of them, but the existing trails and that property owners have agreed folks can access, and we would add these trails to that map, and we would hope to market it widely. We do think, and Mark and I talk about this a lot, which is what keeps us going, is when we do build this out, and we're looking at probably 3 to 4 years, it will be probably the most comprehensive trail system in a small Vermont town, rivaled maybe by Burlington, but it will be a very comprehensive network tying together the two villages and all of the commercial properties, as well as the big institutions like the high school and the middle school. And we do have visions of tying into the hospital as well, which is kind of the only major institution and traffic generator that isn't included in this kind of plan that you saw tonight. So yes, the answer is we think this is a big thing. We think that folks, when they come to Bennington and see this network, will be very impressed, and we do see it as tying in very well with the BATS network, because folks can ride from the Hampton Inn or wherever they're staying right to the BATS network, and we'll have the mountain biking and the bike ped trails linked together. So it's very exciting. It's very frustrating that it's taken us longer than we'd hoped to get there, but we have all the pieces in place, and we're going to keep pushing forward with your help. And in 2 to 4 years, have a significant portion of this built out.
So are there things that we should be doing now that would be helpful, or is it just cheering you on?
Well, we want you to cheer us on, which is great, and use your swag bags everywhere, and spread the word about the Ninja. And as we come to you for additional funding sources as far as grant funds, and that we obviously would expect your support so that we could make those applications to the state and other organizations. So I will say that probably the best thing about all these projects is the incredible support from the community. It's something that everybody wants, and everybody wants to be helpful and participate in, and that's not the case of all government projects, as we all know. But this is a feel-good one, and it does help. It does help to keep us going.
This study looks really interesting. Is this the full report? Is this a summary of the report?
That's the full report. It's shrunken down a little bit because I didn't want to spend a lot of money on 11 by 17s, but if you want 11 by 17, I can get one for you. And it's also, as Mark mentioned, online at the BCRC website. And it's a little hard to read at that scale, but there are some really great recommendations in there. I think I got to give all the credit to Mark. He spent a lot of time out in the field with his permethrin-laced pants on, so he could really see what's going on out there.
Yeah, it looks like a little look into how we could take something that's really good and make it just
shine.
Great.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. I agree.
It really, some of it's aspirational, right? So 4 roundabouts, that seems a little...
Right, we agree, but if you look at most of the projects in there, those are things that RJ and his crew can do very easily. But for the big roundabout projects and intersection projects, but the connection between Tasty Freeze and the rail trail and all those little connections, those are things that we can pick off once we have kind of the big backbone of the network underway. We can really make incredible strides as we do little projects to link all these great assets together.
It's great.
So. I'm sorry that it took way more time than we thought, but we're open to any other questions.
Yeah, so I know this is, part of your jobs, but I'm getting the distinct feeling that there's way more hours that have gone into this that I would probably classify as volunteer hours. Do you have a sense of how many people and how many volunteer hours have?
We could probably put together some numbers, but it's been a lot, for the Ninja Trail in particular, it's been a lot. And I will also say the folks that have stepped up with donations, like Bennington College and the hospital, and I want to a huge thank you to RJ and his crew. These guys do a great job on these projects where we get to do them on our own. And the guys really take pride in it, and it's different than filling potholes, and this is something that they can build and feel really proud about. So yes, there's been a lot of volunteer hours and a lot of enthusiasm, and we've been really happy with the partnerships that we've been able to build going forward.
Well, I guess for me personally, and I think everyone on the board, could you please pass along our thanks to all of those donors and volunteers and everyone?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeannie.
Thank you.
That's all we have, unless you have questions.
No, thanks. It's, you look at it, it's a lot of money, but boy, what a return with that investment for the community.
It is a lot of money, but as Mark always points out to me, it's probably, maybe a mile or so of highway.
Yeah.
And we get a bunch of really great bike ped projects. So if you kind of compare the cost of infrastructure, it's a lot of bang for your buck, I think. We hope that people believe that and continue to believe that.
And you reminded us a lot during this presentation that the lion's share of this, I'm not trying to say that it's not our money, but the idea that it's federally funded is one that is nice to remind the community about. Again, I'm not trying to say that it's not our money, but it does have a different feel.
80 to 90% of the costs of this is covered by grants. Now, we do obviously pay a price for accessing those funds, but it does make these projects possible.
Thanks, gentlemen. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, I think, it's surprising once you get these pathways, it's sort of like if we build it, they will come, and that would be part of what I would expect our community development executive will start to put together. Yeah.
So I
it's a great question, though, and something we should keep track of. That's good.
In fact, there are bike rentals operations.
And the bike shares. I will say one of Zero Watt's first orders of business when she arrived here was to install a bike rack in front of the town office. So she's already on it.
We'll need more.
Yes, we do need more.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on our agenda, appointment to boards and commissions. Stu, you could probably lead us through Zion.
Well, yes, it really depends on how you'd like to approach this. A number of these commissions, the only people applying for appointments are incumbents, and that would be the HPC, the Historic Preservation Commission, the Board of Listers, the Planning Commission, the Regional Commission, although there's still one position open. All of those folks that are applying are incumbents, and they are the only applicants we've received. For the Development Review Board, we have 2 positions open with 3 applicants. 2 are incumbents. And for the Housing Authority, I believe you received in a separate packet the application from Christy Papoon, who is a current incumbent. I think that came to you separately.
Yes, it did.
She is the incumbent seeking a reappointment. And then you have 2 residential positions or applicants that the law, federal law requires that at least 1 position on the Housing Authority Board be filled by a resident. So you have 2 applications for that 1 position, and then you have the incumbent who seeks reappointment. So I'm asking you how you would like to handle this. If you would like to make the appointments to those that are uncontested tonight, we can do so, and then we can set up perhaps an interview session so that you can interview the applicants that you have not met before making appointments to those boards and commissions. And perhaps by that time, we'll have a second applicant for the Regional Commission, and perhaps another second applicant for the other lister position.
Go for it.
Go for it.
We make a motion.
Motion to accept that
Process?
I won't be able to repeat it all, but to accept the incumbents, to interview the people who have not been there, and then wait to see if that vacancy gets picked up, or at least someone puts an application in. Has anybody shown an interest?
Yes. For which one are you referring? I'm sorry.
Well, I
Carson.
guess any of the ones that you haven't even received like a resume on or a submission of interest or anything.
Well, we have not received a second Regional Commission interest letter, nor have we received any interest letter in the Board of Listers. We have the 1 incumbent who's seeking reappointment. I'm assuming your motion would appoint her, and then we would hold off on appointing those contested positions where you have 3 applicants for 2 positions. So the Development Review Board would be held in abeyance, and we'll interview the 1 new applicant. And the Housing Authority residential position would be held in abeyance. The incumbent would be reappointed. Am I correct?
Yep. The only addition would be, I think, for when you have a contest, you might want the 2 that are seeking to be continued.
Yeah, those are the ones I was going to say.
Yeah, so it's basically
We should interview all the people
that are in a challenge.
Contested race.
Yes.
Right, so if there's a contested race, then we're not,
Not going to self-appoint.
we're not going to self-appoint, because that,
It's not fair.
Okay.
I agree.
I have it.
Yep. Is there a second to that motion? Then we have discussion.
Second.
Discussion on that.
So to be clear, the uncontested races that have incumbents, we would accept those positions.
That have submitted.
And in the contested races, we would interview all of the applicants, incumbent and non-incumbent.
Right.
Okay, that's good.
That's the way I understood it.
Now, do you need separate motions for them, or can you just take?
I think, what Carson's motion does is, now that we've clarified, I think it covers it.
Good.
And then we'll be setting up interviews for the next meeting probably. Well, we'll see. Next meeting is next Monday night, so we're kind of in a rush.
May I just ask, in talking with someone on the Housing Authority today, they had a 5-year planning meeting on the 24th. So if it's possible to
get them ahead.
To get people to determine who's going to be on that board, it'd be nice for new people, for the full board to take part in the 5-year plan.
We were planning to meet next Monday night, so we would set up the interviews for that night probably prior to the meeting.
Oh, okay. That would work.
And make those appointments on the 21st.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Is that all right? Good. All in favor of the motion as presented and discussed, signify by aye.
Aye.
That's 7 in favor and no objections or abstentions. And rather than, I don't want to take a lot more of the board time, but would you publicize the names of the individuals so that they will know, and the town will know who the reappointments are?
Would you like me to just read them right through?
Yeah, why don't we do that? It'd be
Okay,
nice
so-
for the people to hear.
To the Historic Preservation Commission, we have reappointed Ann Bugby and Michael McDonough. To the Housing Authority, we have reappointed Christy Papoon.
No.
Yeah, she's a separate one.
It's an uncontested
Yeah, yeah.
seat because there
she's
has to
not
be
a
one resident seat. You can't have two.
I would say that that's perhaps not accurate in that William Clark is not a resident. He's a recipient.
Oh,
So
he's not a resident?
He's
Oh.
not a resident.
Oh.
So that actually is a contested
Okay.
position.
Good point.
Oh, he just, I'm sorry, I misread it. He receives benefits, but not, okay, thanks.
That was confusing.
To the Board of Listers, Carol Holm. To the Planning Commission, Nicholas Lassoff. To the Regional Commission, Dan Monks. And the Town Service Officer position, we generally don't fill.
Great.
So we will have interviews for the Housing Authority, the DRB, and any new applicants that come in for the open seats on the Regional Commission or the Board of Listers.
Great, thanks. Is that applause?
No.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Liquor license applications?
Yes, I'll circulate this for signatures. We had one new license for 305 South Street, so please open to the page and put your John Hancock where it belongs. The others are all renewals.
Okay. And as it's being circulated, could Stu give us the manager's report?
No action items tonight. I do note that the Department of Environmental Conservation representatives were in town for meetings tonight with the folks along the eastern portion of town where St. Gobain is contesting its responsibility on providing water. And then they were going to have a general meeting at Bennington College for the remainder of the community, kind of to give an update on where they are with potential health screenings and where the projects are as they hopefully will finish up this season. I note that, and I don't know that it's become law because there was no budget passed, but Dick Sears has developed legislation that would fund the design of the eastern side of town, the final design, and that would be state monies. I'm assuming they would be included in the general fund budget, and we don't have a budget yet. The only other thing I note here is that the folks who are generating the fundraising for the Merchants Park have asked for your support in allowing them to sell the name of the Merchants Park as part of that fundraising opportunity. Much as, and these would be for a limited time. I don't have all the details, but that way, if a major donor, let's say, we'll use the Bank of Bennington, the Bank of Bennington wants to have the park named the Bank of Bennington Park, they would be the largest donor, and the park would then bear that name for a period of time, and I don't know what that period of time would be, but it would be a way of generating interest and excitement and a little bit of advertising for those folks who are participating.
So my understanding is that it was for a 10-year period?
Correct.
And that, and then the name could be changed, and then it would go back out for bid, and that there was a certain amount of money? I mean, you know, I think we did have conversations about, you know, there were some, I did hear about this, and I guess I just, I thought that there were sort of parameters on it, which I like the idea of there being some parameters in terms of the amount of money to be raised and the length of time, because otherwise it could be a 3-year revolving door that this year it's, you know, Pineapple Park.
I'm sure those
and next year
parameters
it's-
will be developed. They're not developed at this time.
Okay.
The folks who are doing the fundraising really just want to know that that's not going to be a problem, being able to sell the name as part of their donation efforts. We'll get you the detailed information once it is fully developed.
I guess I I'm not against the name. I think that's a great idea because that's how the Fleet Center and the TD North, they do this, but it usually comes at a premium. And it's a real question of...
This is coming at a premium.
Yeah, and those things are not in perpetuity. They last usually 10 years. But it's a great way to raise a lot of money quickly. So I don't know what the parameters were. I heard 100,000, but that may be my...
So I understand, yeah.
We'll get those to you because ultimately we need to know, as you say, what the parameters are.
Well, and I think particularly since it's Merchants Park now, and in 3 years, people will think that's because there are businesses downtown as opposed to Merchants Bank, because who'll remember, because Merchants Bank doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly.
So it does seem like...
It's actually not named Merchants Park. We refer to it as the Merchants Park because they donated it.
Okay, there you go.
That's how it came to be. So that's all I really have for tonight for manager's report.
So that's really informational tonight, but...
That's a great way to raise money.
Yeah.
Stuart, how was Hazmat Collection Day?
Pardon me?
How was the Hazmat Collection Day?
I was not in town, so I can't tell you, and I haven't had a report. Since I haven't had any complaints, I think it went smoothly. We're waiting.
I do not think it went smoothly. I just do want to comment on that. I spent 10 minutes in a line thinking I was going to the transfer station, and it turned out to be the hazardous waste line because there was no signage coming from East Road. There was only signage coming from the other side, and it was only because I gave up that I then discovered that the long line I was in was not the right long line. So on the good side, there were a lot of people that came out, and this was like 9 in the morning. There was a really line all the way back down to East Road. But I also wonder if it might behoove us to think about how to do it more often or to have more workers there so that we can move the line a little faster. It was definitely stalled for a very long time.
We are part of the Bennington County Solid Waste Alliance. The Alliance is the one that actually operates and runs the 2 hazmat collection days, one in the southern part of the county at our transfer station, generally one in the northern part of the county in Dorset or Manchester, and it is staffed by Casella's employees. So we made the signs, but this was a new location. We were trying to operate it a new way to try to separate, so you didn't have those problems, and I'm sorry you got...
Well, the separation was good once you knew that it was separated. Yes, no, it was a great idea. It was just...
Sounds like it's a response after the fact.
Yeah.
Question?
Yeah, I have a couple other I didn't do it, Tony did, and I'll tell you offline. 3 things. Will you just, I'm sure you will, but will you let us know what happens with the vote as soon?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, as soon as you know. Okay. And then I have 2 pieces of good news. Annie McNeese, who is one of the art teachers at the high school, reports that junior Isaiah Rhodes received an honorable mention for his self-portrait painting in the Vermont Scholastic Art Contest. His work was displayed at the Brattleboro Museum and Art Center last month, so congratulations to Isaiah. And at Youth Appreciation Day, they gave out 4 awards to area students who were nominated by local educators and youth-serving organizations in the South Shire. These were learners that demonstrate kindness, leadership, and healthy choices, and there were 4. Jaden Jellison won in the K2 to 1st grade age group, grades 3 to 6. 5th grader Catherine Bittaker won. Grades 7 through 8. 7th grader Russell Andrus. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. And grades 9 through 12. 10th grader Rebecca Bushy won. So congratulations to them.
Okay.
I just want to let everyone know we'll see more community announcements about it, but on Sunday, June 10th, Southwest Vermont Healthcare is hosting a community day. There's a kiosk about it on the 4 corners. It's in the banner. It's been in the banner. It'll be in the banner more. But we invite really the community out to join us in our centennial celebration on Sunday, June 10th. So please please mark the date on your calendar. It's at the medical center. There'll be appropriate signage throughout the community. It'll include free food, games, activities. So really, find the time to come out.
Nothing this week?
May 5th feels like a long time ago now, but it was really quite a happening day. It was great to see the number of community members that showed up for Green Up Day and ended up getting lots and lots of bags of garbage. I went by Subaru and they said that there had been steady stream of people all day long collecting green bags, so that was great. And the town staff did a great job with Youth Appreciation Day and all the volunteers that worked there and the nonprofit agencies. The weather was great for it, of course, but it was really wonderful having as many volunteers make that a great day as did. The Southern Vermont College also hosted the Bats Trail Mix, which was a great event. Cinco de Mayo was going on, so all sorts of things going on. But anyway, it was a great weekend.
It has been a great it's been 3 weeks, right? It feels like I haven't seen you
Only
guys.
every other day with rain.
Wow, no, it was good, no. So there were a lot of really great things that happened. So the 3 things that I picked, first, the VFW held a Sunday lunch meeting, which was really great. And I think they're going to try and do something quarterly just to keep the momentum going. There were community people there, several organizations, and organizations to help Bravo troops' families to connect better to communities. So there's a lot of discussion about how to help spouses and children of individuals who may end up getting deployed overseas, to connect to the community, how they can find out what's here for them, and also how they can give back. So it was really a wonderful, wonderful conversation. So I really would like to thank the VFW for hosting that and getting this going. And then I just wanted to say the BCIC press packet this time has a bunch of press from Career Month. And I'm assuming, so people can go see those press packets by going and looking at the select board packet. And you know, it's one thing when you're sort of in it, but to see all that press was really impressive. So, you know, there were, I counted up, there were 35 activities for Career Month, and the banner really worked hard to be at, you know, a bunch of those events. But I think, you know, the 2 things that really stood out for me were first that almost all of those events involved multiple organizations, so that just the sheer amount of energy and commitment that this community puts into working with individuals to make sure that we know what opportunities exist in this community and how to connect to them is really remarkable. So, you know, I was really happy to see all that press, because I think, yeah, it was really amazing. And then sort of to follow up on that, one of the things that happened a couple weeks ago, one of the articles in there was about emerging leaders, and that's a program that CCV coordinates with the Department of Labor and area high schools for sophomores and juniors. And we had a weekend retreat a couple weeks ago, and John Shanahan showed up on a Saturday morning to show a bunch of teenagers potential pop-up space, temporary business spaces downtown. And so we looked at some empty spaces, and we also went and looked at Green Table to see what a pop-up could be. And then the kids spent the afternoon actually coming up with interesting ideas for business pop-ups that would be interesting to teenagers. What was surprising to me was they didn't want to do anything that was only for teenagers. They wanted it to be for everybody, but just be good for them as well. And so we have a couple neat ideas that kids are hopefully this summer going to share with the Economic Vitality Committee, and just see, you know, if any of them might fly as a pop-up in the future. But, you know, again, it was just a really neat thing to see happen. So that's it.
Thanks.
Just brief, the football team will be operating the dunk booth again at Mayfest on Saturday the 26th, and I'm looking for volunteers. If anyone would like to serve a half hour, or if we get enough people, 15 minutes. We always have the best results when we have nice, colorful people on the dunk booth. So
I bet you Stu would do it.
if any of you are interested, I'm sure I'd have a line around the corner. But
Stu does not do dunking booths.
Okay. But you know, the fire department always helps us out. They've been great. The town has been great. But if anyone wants to volunteer, please let me know.
All right.
Thank you.
I want to do it.
We might have a volunteer, but I'm not going to say anything.
I do it. I do it every year. I usually do an hour. So.
An hour?
I have fun with it.
That's great. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Very productive meeting. Thank you. Thanks very much.
All in favor?
And just to remind you, the next meeting is next Monday.
It's Monday.